Don't have any maps tonight.
I checked it. Oh, then I turned it off?
No. It just doesn't.
Good evening.
Huh?
Design Review Board public meeting for November 14, 2013 is called to order. Please refrain from talking among yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the brown postcards provided at the table at the front door and submit that to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder items at his or her discretion. This will be roll call. Mr. Malikian?
Here.
Ms. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Mardian?
Here.
Mr. Sarkisian?
Here.
And Mr. Simonian is absent. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on November 5th, 2013. For all current communications, discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The board may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The board may refer the matter to the proper department section for investigation and report. We have 5 items scheduled for tonight's meeting, but first we need to start out, since our chairman is out, with the election of a vice chair.
I will nominate Ms. Judy Palmer.
I'll second.
The roll call. Mr. Malikian?
Yes.
Mr. Mardian?
Yes.
Mr. Sarkisian?
Yes.
Thank you very much. One other thing to note in terms of the speakers, applicants will be allotted 5 minutes to explain their projects. Other interested parties will be allotted 3 minutes at the discretion of the chairperson. And as mentioned before, the chairperson may alter the order of the agenda. That's it from staff.
I think we're okay as we are. We're ready?
Madam Chair, just a note that I need to leave at 7:30, so I will
We'll try.
help you as much as I can here.
First item on the agenda is case PDR 1309-178, 3338 Deer Creek Lane.
Thank you, Chairwoman Palmer. Good evening, board members. As you stated, this is case number PDR 1309-178B, located at 3338 Deer Creek Lane. This is a third time submittal, so my presentation this time will be brief. This is a proposal to construct a new 3,525 square foot two-story single-family house and an attached three-car garage on a vacant lot. The subject site is 7,838 square feet, and the new house will be built in the classically influenced style, which is similar to nearby homes in this neighborhood. The last time the board reviewed this case was on September 12, 2013, and at that time the board voted to have the project returned for redesign with conditions. There were 8 conditions at that time. The applicant has elected to pursue the same design, generally the same, and with some small changes. And those changes were to the garage door. The condition stated that it should be a panel garage door, and the revised drawing reflects that design. And also the color of the garage door should be the same color as the limestone, and that has been changed as well. Otherwise, the project is essentially the same design as was previously reviewed by the board. The proposed home will be centrally located on the subject site and meets all zoning requirements in terms of setback, height, and floor area ratio, as well as lot coverage. The design is consistent with this neighborhood, and staff believes that the detailing of this project is of high quality and it's appropriate to the architectural style. And in terms of the mass and scale, classically design homes generally have mass and scale that is the same repeat on the first and second floor. So that is what is in front of you, and we believe that it's appropriate and also fits within the context of this neighborhood. And if you would like, I can go over all the conditions that were okay. So condition number 1, lower the height of the building so that it is lower than the height proposed under the first submittal, which was considered on March 7, 2013. The building and garage shall be depressed lower than proposed in a manner that will not create a sunken appearance, but will lower its height and allow it to follow the topography of the lot in a sensitive manner. Number 2, provide a photo montage, street elevation rendering that includes the proposed project and the existing residences on either side of it, including all building heights and respective curb elevations. The photo montage shall show the slope of the street. Condition number 3, show the location of the AC unit on a site plan. 4, provide detailed drawings of the cast stone ornamentation showing profiles, projections from adjacent stucco surfaces, and an attachment method for all typical elements. Amend plan view drawings to indicate location and projection of ornamental elements. Condition number 5, the garage door shall be panel design, not one with horizontal lines as depicted on the elevation. Number 6, reduce the width size of the garage further and introduce detail around openings similar to the detail around the windows. 7, the color of the garage door shall match or be similar to the color of the limestone. And 8, depict access pathways in landscaped areas at both sides of the proposed house. Verify that additional hardscape will allow the project to meet zoning code requirements for landscape coverage. So the conditions that the applicant has addressed, again, is the style of the garage door, the color of the garage door, and that's about it. So the other conditions have not been addressed. So staff recommends that the board deny the project, but the board has several options. 1 is to approve the project as proposed. 2 is to approve the project with condition, and 3rd, as I stated previously, deny the project altogether. Thank you.
Okay, I have quite a few cards here, and I have 2 owner cards and an applicant, and I'm not sure which one wants to speak first. You just come up and give your name and address.
My name is Sergio Soroyan. I'm a son of a owner of a house at Deer Creek. On March 7, 2013, we came here to my first DRB. I had great expectations, honestly high aspirations for that project, but apparently DRB didn't see it that way. They gave us 2 hints, pointers to address the windows, doors of our garage, and symmetry. We addressed that. We had no problems with that. But one issue that we touched upon all was the height of a house. Our height is about 23 and 9. And within the guidelines of Glendale zoning department regulation, that's a legal height of a house. We're not asking for more, we're not asking for less. Now apparently that day, the DRB committee didn't see it right. They mentioned the fact that because your neighbors are complaining about the house, you should lower the house. Well, who is my neighbor? My neighbor is Joe Ivazi. His brother Sedek Ivazi. And every time he comes to a podium here and talks to anybody, he also always mentions his affiliation to the city. It is what it is. I'm not affiliated to the city. I'm just a tax-paying citizen trying to build a house. Now, on the same day as the meeting adjourned, as luck will have it for my behalf, you guys had another DRB hearing here, March 7, 2013. That day, you guys had a guy, or a resident of Glendale, was trying to build a second-story house on a one-story unit. And in that regard, his was a little more complicated. The whole neighborhood had this one-story house over there. What happened that day? A lot more neighbors came. They were complaining about the whole issue. And DRB approved the house. Even though he was blocking a neighbor's view, but he had a view side. Neighbors didn't have a view side. The law states at Glendale, there's no view ordinance. I didn't know about that. My friends who are architects, they go to UCLA studying law. They're like, why don't you look into this? You guys had a DRB on 2 same days, you and him. They approved his project, they didn't approve yours. I don't know what the problem is. As of right now, still, I'm kind of perplexed about this whole situation. Why am I following the rules and regulation of City of Glendale, and I'm still not being approved for this house? I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of being condescending towards me, to be honest. I'm not asking for any breaks or favors, I'm not. If I had a way to make it bigger, oh, trust me, I would. I would make it bigger. I would love to make it bigger. But law states that you should have a smaller house on the block because of rules and regulations. When we bought a property, we were allowed to have a bigger house. But now we can't because law stipulates that you can't have a bigger house. So based on the guidelines, we're following the guidelines of the whole situation. Now, before I proceed, I came here with my first DRB, and I thank you people for looking at my case. Well, this is my last DRB about this project, so I want to thank a few people too. I want to thank the staff who were really great in the whole process. They really helped us out a lot, appointment-wise, full professionally, in terms of setting up appointments and things of that nature. So I commend you a lot, guys. Thank you very much for everything you've done. However, I can't say this about everybody else. Mr. Malikian, I find you very hypocritical. As luck will have it, my neighbors live by you, and so do my friends. And I've seen your house. You live in a 2-story house in a modern house. Like your neighbors have a 1-story house. And this is how you always talk about how a house has to match the neighborhood. Well, your house doesn't match the neighborhood.
Sir, personal comments about the board members are highly inappropriate and don't help your case.
I'm exercising my right to free speech. If you want to hinder that right, be my guest.
As a staff person, I'm trying to help your case, that's
Okay. In addition, we pay a lot of money to our architects to design the house. And I would like to know who's the architect here, licensed architect here, on this DRB on committee right now, who's allowed to criticize my house and talk to my architect. Because everybody's point of view I've seen, I never saw anybody's qualifications as to why would they argue about my house or go against my house. If you guys could present that to me, it will be very respectable on your behalf. Now, I also realized a few things about this whole situation is because at the last DRB, Mr. Vrej Mardian made some comments about the situation about the AC units. Well, I found it very odd, to be honest, to talk about my DRB about AC units. So I went to city officials, I asked, is it a presentable question? And to be honest, well, I want to say one thing, that shouldn't be asked at the DRB meeting. I don't know why would you want to present that question to at the DRB meeting since we're discussing the design of a house, and your job should be to be able to help me to guide to build a house, not to talk about my AC units. So everybody I spoke to had the same opinion about that issue. And one more thing I want to discuss. You want to talk about personal. I talked to a few people at City Hall, and I object to your being here today, as a matter of fact.
Sir, we're getting close to the end of the time.
It's okay. I still have more time through my personal rebuttal. As I know, as everybody else knows, you're very good friends with Joe Ivazi, so you being here today
Sir,
is a conflict of interest.
Sir,
It
I'm
creates a
gonna have to
bias
stop
towards
you.
me. Why should I stop, ma'am? I'm not allowed to express my...
you had your 5 minutes.
I should have 10 minutes, to be honest.
5 minutes. We thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, Arthur Soroya.
Madam Chair, can I
Yes.
go on the record
Yes.
about Joe Ivazi? Yes, I do know Joe Ivazi, and I haven't seen him for over 4 years, and I've never discussed anything about this project with him. So it's wrong to say or criticize me for knowing the person. I know a lot of people in this town. I've lived here 38 years, so I know quite a bit of people in this town. Thank you very much.
Okay, Arthur Soroyan?
Yes, can I talk to my brother?
You allowed to do that?
wanted to talk to me. I wrote a speech.
Okay.
About 3 minutes.
Can we limit this to 3 minutes then?
Make it 3 minutes, no problem. About my neighbors. My name is Sergio Sorningen. About my neighbors. I mean, this is the United States of America. Greatest country in the world. Reason why I'm here today because of freedom, liberty, equality. It justifies everything. My neighbors don't see it that way. They still think it has a Tehran mentality. They still in Iran. They could bully their way through and harass people through these measures. This is total harassment. If I'm not breaking any laws and regulations, why would a neighbor come to me, come to this DRB, and talk about my project in a bad light? That's what I would like to know. They come here every time. And you know, my friends are salivating at this. Like, Serge, why don't you just go and sue this whole process? I didn't want to do this. I took my turns. I came here like I had to. I came to this committee like I had to. You guys wanted me to come, I came right away, no problem. It took a while to come here, but I did. But every person that came here from this day on and spoke about me in a bad light about this project and knew I wasn't breaking law will be sort of harassment. I don't know if it's going to be happening today, tomorrow, next month, or maybe 2 months. It's on my jurisdiction. But if you're going to harass somebody, where's the price to pay for that? And legal price to pay for that too. So everybody that came here from this point on, they know what they're facing. Now I came to this DRB initially. I paid $3,000 my first DRB, $3,500 my second DRB, $4,000 the last DRB. My friends have built houses here in Glendale before. They paid $250 for DRB about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if my recollection is correct. With all these price increases, well, the least you could do is help the person out, just follow your own guidelines. That's the least you could do. Yeah, guide the person to design your house. I totally understand that. But don't try to create your own laws as you go. If I'm allowed this kind of house, I'm going to build this house. I mean, this is a matter that's very dear to me. I told you that before too. And will stay dear to me too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marco Brambilla?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Marco Brambilla, and I will address only 3 issues. One is, in the very original DRB hearing, we were given clear instructions to comply with the style of the house, to bring the style of the house in full consistency with the design elements, even if it meant to be more symmetrical and more boxy, if you so will. The second, we did comply with all of those and to the satisfaction of the staff and with cooperation with the staff. We did not comply with 2 issues, with lowering of the garage and the lowering of the overall height, only because we felt it is material irrelevant. In an 18-foot front setback, there is so much you can depress a garage. 6 inches more or less will not make a dramatic difference one way or the other. The overall height of the building could be reduced by a foot or foot and a half. It makes a big difference in the smaller spaces inside, but it makes zero difference in the overall image and the volume of the house as seen from a distance. And the third component I would like to mention is we are caught between the rock and the hard place, because the entire neighborhood has been developed based upon a now expired CCNR, with a lot coverage of almost 90-95%, with almost no free space, no open space, no trees. And this is the smallest of the house there, with the most open space. And having said so, we are being penalized by the development. So I think there is a very unfair looking at the entire neighborhood, and I would like to show you the aerial photographs, which clearly indicates that the properties have been developed to a maximum, and now we are being denied because the property has not been reduced its overall height by a foot or foot and a half. That will not be visible at all and would not have any impact on the neighborhood's immediate vicinity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Arman Anazi? State your name and address for the record.
Hi everyone, my name is Armin Ivazi. I live at 3335 Deer Creek Lane. We've been happily residing at the address for the past 23 years. I'm here today to discuss the current and past matter regarding the projected height of the property to be developed at 3338 Deer Creek. From what I can remember since childhood, the area has always been exceptionally neighborly, cooperative, and peaceful. And it's unfortunate that this dynamic has recently been disrupted. Not long ago, the community at Deer Creek Lane was made aware of the recent project to build a home at the final remaining plot on the street. Development I'm certain many of us were more than pleased to see completed, as the land has gone untouched for 23 plus years and has remained a relative eyesore from everyone's perspective. However, the initial design, for obvious reasons, has not been fondly accepted by the residents of the neighborhood, as was made crystal clear by the previous petitions, both signed and documented. Twice we had visited the design review board. Twice a ruling was made in favor of the neighborhood's residents to lower the projected height of the home, and twice nothing has yet changed. This decision from the developmental standpoint is an insult to both the board and an insult to the community as a whole. The facts of the case need not be repeated. It's clear that the developers of the property want to cut corners and entirely disrupt the flow and uniformity of the neighborhood, as it had been established over 23 years prior. The property in question remains the final home to be developed at Deer Creek, a street where all neighbors had time and time again built with respect to the established code and thereby limited the height of the final build. This maintained the sense of uniformity between the homes, maintained the property value of all the homes without any exception, as well as maintain the view for all neighbors to enjoy, being as this is the primary reason of all residents having built upon the mountaintop at Oakmont. It is without question that an 8-foot increase in the projected height of the building relative to every single other home on the street is the absolute wrong choice, an eyesore from a developmental standpoint and equally so from the communities. The facts of the case remain unchanged. The previous two rulings remain unchanged. The will of the community at Deer Creek remains unchanged, and it's unfortunate that the same can be said of the developer as well. I sincerely hope that we can all save face from following today's proceedings for the right decision to be made yet again and honored for the final time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kathy Wong.
Hi, my name is Kathy Wong. This is the third time I've been here.
Put your address.
I live at on Deer Creek Lane, 3323 Deer Creek Lane, and I've been here 3 times. I have the same issues the past 2 times. Is the height of the project? I think it's way too high. It is incompatible with the neighbor houses, and I think it needs to lower the house a little bit, and I think what Armin was saying is so correct on all the aspects. And I would like to say I go for what the city staff recommendation, just deny the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last card I have is David Hartunian.
Hi, David Hartunian. I do not live on Deer Creek Lane, but my family does at 3335. I've spoken the last 2 times to the DRB, and through the whole process, I mean, you know, it's kind of baffling because I don't understand why this is becoming a personal matter with the applicant. You know, if he put himself in the shoes of the people that were complaining, he might understand that they are complaining for a reason. It's not a personal matter. They do not know him. And, you know, if he had the house across the street and some guy was going to come and build a structure that was above and beyond taller than everybody else's, you know, might be a concern. You know, decreases the property values for those people, it blocks the view, and you know, it's not really a conforming factor, which we've discussed numerous times the last few meetings. And you know, granted, here we are, and now the height has not changed, and you know, I don't know what the strategy here is, but you know, as a part of the family that lives there, and I've spoken to numerous neighbors and so forth, and we gathered petitions and etc. You know, everyone's on the same page, and we have nothing personal against the guy. I mean, I really don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's trying to make his point, but the point is, you know, there's a neighborhood of people that live equally, and it is America, and that means equal rights for everybody, not one guy having a taller house than another guy. So that's where I stand, and I hope the board sustains the motion to lower the height limit as they have the 2 past previous times.
Thank you. Rebuttal after this? We do a rebuttal?
Sure.
Does the owner want to rebut any of this? Give you 3 minutes. Can we stick to the house?
No problem, we'll stick to the house. Sergio Soroyan again. Now, I say here right now, it's kind of funny to be honest. I was listening to David Hartunian saying equality. They have a 4,500 square foot house. I have a 3,300 square foot house. Where's the quality right there? I would like to have equality. Let me have the same kind of house as them, area-wise. That would be equality. I would lower my height too for compromise too. If I have a 4,500 square foot house, I would do it. But you want me to have a smaller house, tiniest house? What is it, Brady Bunch? I mean, that's not equality to me. That's being one-sided opinion right there by David Hartunian. And for Mrs. Kathy Wong to come here and have audacity to even talk about the whole project, I mean, this is very interesting right now. She has a 3-story house, over 30 foot high. She's talking about my 23 feet, 23 and 9. I mean, am I the only one that comprehends this whole situation? I mean, we're trying to set a double standard here, and I'm trying to find my way through this by defending myself here for having the smallest house on the block. I mean, my house is I have more landscaping than anybody else. I mean, I'm not building a park, but I have to have it. I mean, more landscape than anybody else, smallest house on the block. And yet, because of my height, we're ruling that. When you guys have a code saying there's no view ordinance in the city of Glendale, I mean, if you have something to say about it, please say it. I mean, I'll listen to you. All I know is, if a rule states that, and these people, like I said before, had 3 houses over there in the country club before. They could have kept the proper east side. They didn't keep the proper east side. View side, I mean. They didn't keep the view side. They tried to make a quick buck on the profit. God bless them. This is America. You want to do it, do it. But they sold the properties. But I paid more money for the view side, and they were freeloading on my view side for 15 years now. I was paying my property tax for 15 years now. Now we got so used to that emptiness over there. The son is here and I'm talking about like I'm messing up the culture of a neighborhood. By building a house, I'm messing the culture of a neighborhood. If anything, I'm going to bring value to the neighborhood. New houses, new developments. My friend was trying to buy a property last time. If you guys are interested, I'll tell you, Sugarloaf in Glendale. He thought it was La Cañada. So he calls a real estate broker. He goes, I want to buy that. He thought it was La Cañada. No DRB, no, less headache, more hair on your head. So he's like, I want to buy a property, great property. As soon as they heard Glendale, he ran away from it because DRB goes, I don't want to deal with DRB. Even a real estate broker left at that situation. Councilman Friedman, on few occasions, I heard her talk about that DRB cannot be stricter than the codes and zonings of regulation of Glendale. I mean, just open your books, you'll see the law over there. That's all I'm asking you to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any more cards, so I'm going to close the public session. Do we want to start the discussions?
I had a question to staff,
Yes.
if I may. What's our authority, the RV authority, aside from, we get projects, obviously they have to meet zoning codes. What's our authority beyond that?
Your authority is to expect properties to conform to the citywide design guidelines. Your authority is to look at neighborhood compatibility issues. Every case that we hear is a case-by-case base. Every property has different conditions and different neighborhood conditions, so DRB's authority is to assess those conditions and make its best professional judgment about what's appropriate.
So regardless if it...
Your authority extends to the location of HVAC units on a property, for example, so it goes from the big picture to the small picture.
The other question I have, the last time we talked about the CCNRs. Now, these CCNRs were done part of the development at that time. Now, to my understanding, is that the CCNRs are expired.
Yes.
So there is no,
The CCRs are not in force. The board
Okay.
does not base any decisions on them.
So when we're looking at compatibility, and this board looks at compatibility, and that street side has a cohesive, and consistent height, is it our authority to maintain that?
Yes, the fact that the zoning code may allow greater height doesn't mean that every property is going to be built out to the maximum allowed by the zoning code, and that's where the board's expertise in determining compatibility is what's required of you.
And rather, I have another question. Last time when it came to us, the building had increased further in height than what the original conditions were, correct?
That's correct, Mr.
And the
Moria.
building got higher
Yes.
from,
Then the first review on March 7, 2013.
Now, have you discussed this with him, whether or not he's willing to go back to that height?
No, that was not an item that we discussed with
Thank
the
you, Madam
applicant.
Chair. That's it.
Do you want to go ahead and start the comments, or?
If I may, I'd rather wait, Blas,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to here sit and defend myself and my personal living style or anything like that. I've been set here by the council members to hold the urban design guidelines, the guidelines that are given to us, and for us to take every project, as Mr. Pike explained, to review and to make our judgment based on that. On record, and I've pretty much all along, I have no objections to the style of architecture that the applicant has chosen. I think it's consistent with its own style. I think we've given enough points and items that, again, with these changes, do not make any difference in size of the house or square footage. For me, it's kind of baffling for 22 extra square feet that they've decided to have. They've added a third car garage. And so those are the things that they're the applicants, it's their building. I'm not going to judge that. But they're the ones who chose this style. They're the ones who chose the size of the building. They're the ones who chose the height of the building. We've given them enough instructions and enough direction for them to make this more compatible on what we have in the property. You have an adjacent building that is very similar to this. And all we're asking is to bring it and match it to that height. And that's all it is. Without losing any square footage, without losing any kind of compromising the style or the building itself. And by simply asking you to give us the vignette or the perspective from the street to allow us to see this compared to the adjacent building. It was just, these are very simple gestures that that could have been provided for us, and your case may have been supported by me. I mean, these are very, very simple conditions. We've gone through different scenarios and different options. We've given them different options for us to understand what is happening. Right now, the way it is, the way that it's been proposed, it is high. It is 23 feet from the street, but it is a 32 foot from the back. So you have almost a I don't even have dimensions, almost 8 foot of crawl space in the back of the building. That can be lowered. I mean, I really don't understand why can't that be lowered. Your excavation would be easier, your foundations would be easier, and just the construction costs, all of those would be easier. But it is again, it is their project. It is what they're proposing. So, and at the end, you know, they've come back to us with a higher building that was originally. So, I'm gonna listen to what staff has recommended, and there's not much I can do. And if they decide to take it on to the council, let the council deal with this, because it seems like we can't really get anywhere with this. So that's where I am.
Mr. Sarkisian?
Actually, I don't have anything to add. I concur with this. We went through this last time. So.
Mr. Marty?
I do concur with the comments that Mr. Malikian made. We're really not asking for much from this building. I want to say something. This style of the architecture, this is one of the few locations that, this community wants to see. I mean, anywhere else, any other part of the city, a lot of other parts of it, this style will not make it. And I have no problem with the style. All I want is the building to get lower. And it's not a matter of personal taste or choice. I'm looking at the context. And the context is dictated already. And it's not a bad design for that area. Actually, this will be one of the better interpretation of the style in the neighborhood. I have no problem. We're not asking for much from the beginning. All we're asking is for the height to be reduced at the garage. And it's been done, and it's been done everywhere in town in that neighborhood. And that's the only objection I have. It's not a personal matter. It's not what I have relationship with other people. It's just, I think, although the CCNRs were expired, but there was a reason for those CCNRs to be there. That part of the street was a lower portion. And with that, I'm going to close my comments, and if the applicant wishes to appeal it to City Council, that's fine. I think I'll give the applicant another opportunity, if the board chooses to do so, is if we can continue this and come back with us with the montage that Mr. Malikian is talking about. Convince me otherwise, because right now I don't see it. Yeah, we have Googles, we have we don't even have a perspective of the street, and you know, is that something possible? I mean,
we cannot continue this hearing, and given that the applicant has had the period between today and the last hearing to bring those materials to the board and chose not to, suggest that a continuation wouldn't be effective.
those are my comments.
Well, I wasn't at the previous hearings, but I agree with all the comments that have been made. And as far as our job to make sure things comply with the hillside guidelines, this particular proposed house has gone up rather than work with the hillside. As I say, I agree with all the comments, and I think it would have been a big help to have the street view. We've asked for that many times, and that has been a big help, and that might have benefited the applicant. I agree with all the comments. That's all I can say at this point. So our options are to
approve the project as proposed, approve with conditions, or deny. If you deny the project, the applicant has a 15-day period from today to file an appeal to take the case to City Council.
Do we have a proposal?
Can't continue it, so take a vote.
We can't continue.
Um,
Do we have any other comments before we can come up with a...
In terms of a motion?
We aren't getting a motion at this point.
Oh, you're not getting a motion.
No, I mean, we will get a motion, but I was just going to comment back on Mr. Mordian as far as continuing. It's very simple. This building has to be lowered. I'm not asking him to reduce the size. I'm not asking him without having a montage. I have to make an arbitrary height. I don't have the adjacent building height elevations. I don't have that. Based on last time where we measured somewhere around, I would say about 16 feet, 17 feet. Right now we're dealing with 23 feet. So it's very simple to approve it with a certain height, or we deny it. And those are the two choices that I think we have on our plate. And it would solve a lot of the problems. It would lower the building. I don't think any of the neighbors have an issue with the size, because I think, as a matter of fact, I think it's one of the smaller sizes of the buildings there, which, if he had a larger land, I would have agreed that it should have been bigger, but lowered. But at this moment, I think based on the maximizing footprint that they've chosen to place the structure in the site, meeting all the minimum setbacks, and as they said, they met all the zoning requirements, so there's no variances or anything, so the only thing that we have left is to lower that.
And
I refuse to lower a house.
if staff
Can't have any cross communication.
If staff can add, Board Member Malikian is correct. You could approve with the existing conditions that we have. Our recommendation would be that you give us a very specific height reduction so that if this does get appealed to council, we would have a number to either work with the applicant to find a way to reduce it to whatever height you recommend, or they could then appeal the decision.
What was the height difference prior of this, or
Well, no, I think, forget the prior. I think, what is the adjacent building height? We don't have that.
well, they're about 18, 19 feet, 20 feet?
But we don't
So,
know.
so you would, if you went in that direction, we would look at this as the datum line, the house to the right when looking from the street, and then the house would then work its way down into the hill, closer to the hillside design guidelines, hopefully.
I'm willing to support that motion. I'm a reasonable person. It's not a matter of, square footage. I've never had an objection on the square footage. This is one of the areas that has the highest floor area ratio. But I can support a motion to reduce the building height in line with the neighbors.
Wouldn't we have to have specific figures?
Well,
I mean, he's saying we can get a datum from the adjacent building.
If that's the direction the board, we would have to work with the architect to determine what that height is, and then redesign the project at that height. We have the heights of several of the nearby properties.
well, you
We
said
don't
if we
happen to have
deny
the site.
that, we would give a specific height that we would have approved it by? or
Not if you deny. If you
So
deny,
denied, we
a
just
denial is
deny
a
it.
straight denial.
The denial.
If you choose to approve with conditions, that gives the applicant an opportunity to work with us to find a way to make that work. And if they can't do that, they would have to make that decision in 15 days because the appeal period would end. So it'd have to be quick work to find a solution.
Like I said, I'll support the motion of lowering the building height and whatever conditions have been incorporated in the staff report.
This is not something that I would ask, Madam Chair. Can I have the applicant come forward for a second? I have a question.
Yeah. Reopen.
Need to open the public hearing?
You don't
We
need
have to
to.
reopen this.
You said you're not going to lower.
I'm not
it.
going to lower a house.
But if I give you a specific height, but let me explain to you. If I give you a specific height, it will give you more than 15 days to appeal it. That way, you have more time. If I deny it right now, you only have 14 days to appeal it.
And we don't believe that it would give him any extra time. The 15-day clock begins after your decision.
So either way, it
Either
would be
way.
15 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just deny my project, please, because I have been coming here for over 9-10
Okay.
months.
I will make a
And just-
motion to deny the project.
Thank you very much.
Close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there was a motion by Mr. Malakian to deny the project, and a second by Mr. Mardian, and this will be roll call. Mr. Mardian,
Yes.
Mr. Malakian,
Yes.
Mr. Sarkisian,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Palmer.
Yes.
Motion passes to deny the project. Thank you.
Our second project, EDR 1318802, 527 Hazel Street. Mr. Baxter.
Yes. All right, Madam Chair and members of the board, the plans are over here on this far right side when you're facing the board, but there's also some right here on this side. There's the perspectives that would go along with this. We also have some photographs here for you all to look at. You can see the colored materials, and very briefly, what I'd like to do is just mention that the property, if you look here, is right adjacent to the 5 freeway, to the, it's going to be kind of to the south, and to the west is going to be an industrial zone. And then on the other side, we have our multifamily residential. And as noted in your staff report, and I'll go through it very briefly, the existing property consists of 2 lots. They're both single-family houses. Both of them will be demolished, and they're going to build 4 units. One unit, it'll be a standalone unit, and then there'll be 3 units over here. And but here's your 2 lots, and then they'll have as you see on the site plan, you have your driveway coming down the middle. Here's your freeway, and here's your IMU the industrial zone. The property, as you can see, is irregular shaped, and so it kind of forces the applicant to different site planning designs. The staff didn't really have any problem with the site planning. For the most part, we felt it was acceptable. On the mass and scale, we noted, just as a note, that this is a higher density than a lot of the properties in there, but when it gets redeveloped in general throughout the neighborhood, we feel that the higher densities will eventually come along, but this is an appropriate density for the property. One thing that staff noted, that the particular design was is a kind of a combination of ranch and craftsman style. We actually talked to the applicant just before the hearing, and he made some changes to the plans, which I think are reflected in your reductions, and I believe they're the same up here. And they may address some of the conditions and concerns that we had, because we were verbally talking to him, and I think he took some good notes. So, but I'll go through them real quick with you. The design and details section. One of the concerns that we had was the reducing some of the stucco in the street faces. We have a condition related to that. Maybe add like a wainscot. And you'll see over here, I think what they did is they brought a little brick planter out toward the front here. They in this area here to give it some type of a base along the front. We're recommending the single or double hung windows rather than sliders for this particular style. And the color palette, which we show here, it's not really reflected well here. We spoke to the applicant about it. He's open to color changes. He prefers something modest if the board has a problem with this. Otherwise, the staff recommends approval with the 6 conditions that we have listed here in the staff report. I can answer questions or go into more detail.
Any questions for staff? No. Okay. I have one card, if I can find it. Bear with me here. Franco. I should have known.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Franco Noravian, 409 West Broadway, Glendale, California, 91204. I'm the architect on this project. As Chris mentioned, there's a lot of single-family homes in this neighborhood, but it's zoned multi-family. But we're the last project right before the 5 freeway, so I think developing this as a multi-family will help transition between the freeway and the rest of the single-family homes there. The lots, it's like a triangular shape. I wish I had a rectangle to work with, because I would have preferred to put the 3 units against the freeway and the single-family home on this side. But I didn't have that option. The shape of the lot forces you to put the single-family to the west, and then put the triplex basically to the east. But I was in order to break up the massing a little bit, because I didn't want the neighbor to the east to be looking at a 2-story building. So I decided early on that the second story wasn't going to be a continuous block. So as you look at the plan and on the site plan and everything on the elevations, you see you see 3 separate structures, and at the base it'll be a fence. So most of that 1 story won't even be visible. It's just garages on the first floor. So that's about it. And as far as the massing, staff's comments about massing, with multifamily, the setback, the average setbacking, kind of forces me into that shape that I have. I know it's a little bit off center, but that's because of the average setbacking that I have to maintain. So what I did is they were a little concerned about the roof lines. So that's another decision that I made to simplify it. If you look at my roof plan, I decided to have like a single ridge, because if every time there was a change in plane, if I kept an 8-foot plate height, it would have resulted in a lot of different gables. And I looked at that option, but I didn't like it. I prefer having a single ridge and then just vary the plates. But after looking at the staff's condition, my way of trying to mitigate it a little bit is on the renderings that you see on the left, which says 527 Hazel. In that drawing, the plate height has been dropped in the bathrooms to 7 foot, so it lowers the roof a foot more than what's on the front elevations that are to the right. Also, the color is more accurately reflected on the renderings on the left than the ones on the right. And I added the window. That was one of the staff's comments. I added the planter at the base to reduce the amount of the visual impact of the stucco. So basically, I've pretty much, I think, done all the comments. Oh, except for the windows. I agree that double hung windows will look better. I just think sliders are more practical for an apartment building. But if you decide that you want me to do double hungs, that's okay too. We can do that.
Any questions?
I do have a question. Usually, what it's required as part of the and you have shown a adjacent building on the adjacent.
Right.
But we don't have any information on the freeway side, so I just need to know the property line. Is that the retaining wall, or what is that?
No, it's just it's a berm. Basically, it starts. Yeah.
So how's your property line addressed with all the planting? And there's quite a bit of planting along the berm
Freeway,
side.
yeah.
So freeway side,
Yeah.
how does that? I mean, do you have any?
All we can do is just have a fence, and beyond that is not our property.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question is that, have you looked at any sound issues or anything, or there are no sound? Because I drove there was some sound, but it wasn't, you're facing, the wall of China on the side.
Right,
so.
right. Well, we're below the freeway, so I don't think you get as much sound as if you were above the freeway. But I think
the windows that we're talking about, is there any kind of a treatment that you're looking into?
I think when we go to plan check, we might have to do triple glazed windows. We might even have to do a sound analysis.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
I had a question, Mr. Marco. I'm not clear about the north rear elevation, Unit D. You show a balcony there.
Yes.
I don't see it on the plan.
May I approach?
Sure.
The middle plane.
No, that's this. No, this one. The elevation D, Unit D. Unit D is a single unit. That's the.
Oh, yes.
This one right
it's
here. Yeah, I don't see a balcony on the plan.
It's right there. That's the deck. Oh, it's not a room. That's I know.
It looked like a room to me.
Looked like a room. No,
yeah,
it's a
because
balcony.
you have a wall cut.
It's a covered balcony. Yeah. With the roof coming around it, there's really no railing. Just a solid.
Okay, got it.
Is that it?
That's it. Yeah.
I have a question related to both those. That balcony on the back end, that's facing the freeway. If that were turned, did you consider turning that, I guess it would be east?
No, no. Actually, that's facing an industrial zone. If I turned it, it would face the freeway. If I turn it the other way, it would face the neighbor. So I didn't want to face the neighbor.
Because it looks like it just, with all that sound coming in through the glass.
May I? If I, this side will be the neighbor's side, so I didn't want to have any balconies on that side for their privacy, to protect their privacy.
No, she's talking about that specific balcony.
This balcony.
No, I'm just saying, this balcony right here.
Oh, this one.
If this was turned over to here, because right now it's looking right on the freeway.
I have no objection turning it, but I was concerned about.
I don't know what's on the neighbor's, at that end.
That's just back here is an industrial building.
Right.
And this is the freeway.
My other question is, how close is that big green wall of that industrial building? that on the property line?
No, it's not, I don't think it's on the, oh, here it is, yeah. Oh,
That,
so this is us, yeah, it's pretty close to the property line.
It's on the
Yeah.
property line.
Yeah,
because you don't have any
we
landscape
just have the
screening
8
other
feet
than
or
grass.
8 feet,
back
huh?
there. You don't
Yeah.
have any screening other than grass.
Oh, you mean as far as trees?
Plant material or anything? Is that a
yeah.
fence back there?
Right, no, well, there is a fence, yeah, but we
Alright.
could add,
Okay, I
that's
just,
a good comment, yeah, we can
How
add some.
far down does it go, the green wall? How close?
This
end
is
right
our
there?
property. This is our property, these two lots, that's the neighbor's lot. Yeah.
no,
So it's only
That's,
half of that.
Great Myrtle or something.
I mean, can we,
It needs to be screened.
How much higher would it be? The wall?
Ah, the
Like,
balcony.
how high do you know?
Oh, that's about it. Yeah, probably be at that height, yeah.
Would you consider turning that balcony is to screen the neighbor's yard? I'm just
Sure.
saying they're looking right.
So we can turn it and then
From a
provide
noise
landscaping?
standpoint, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's a good idea.
Any other questions?
I have a couple of questions to staff, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong. For a project this size, aren't we required to have a survey? This site plan doesn't show me sidewalk, curbs, parkway trees, where the existing driveway is, because, and whatever comments that the other board members have. This site plan is, we should look at the submittal, because this is a 4-unit building, and this is a very, very loose site plan. I mean, no disrespect to Mr. Franco, you've been doing this for a while, and if you're doing these units, it needs to be clear, legible for me to understand, instead of looking for how this thing works. The other question is site planning, really. You're coming into these entry of these units from the driveway, and you're going through a trash recycle to get to these units. I know the area is not, it's next to the freeway, but I feel the site planning on this, the entry of the units, should be on the side. It'll be a nicer project, really appealing project. If I want to buy these units, and I'm assuming they're for sale, or they will be, or whether it's rental, if I want to live in this unit and those back 2 units, I have to go through the driveway, cross over the trash, and on a paved area to get to these units. It'll be, this is, again, if the board decides otherwise, I think the unit entry should be from the side. That's my opinion. And I think you need to relocate the trash area, because this is a predominant, it's very close to the street, somewhere else. And for future, this is a new project. You should do a survey and show me how the street is, because it curves, it has a fence, it has trees. Is that
Yes.
that's your existing
That's
driveways? I mean, it doesn't show me that.
Agree.
And I know you're trying to get this project through, and I have no problem with the concept. I love the concept, actually, doing on-grade versus subterranean. The other comments I have, can I ask, or we can close the hearing? Or
We can close it.
We can
We're done
close
with
the
them and
yeah.
discuss.
So we can, I had
If I can just address
Yes.
the walkway issue. On the site plans, that it's not on the large site plan, but on the site plans that the small-scale site plans that you have in your package, the last-minute solution I came up with that is just to do a different kind of paving and just for the back units, to access for the back units, so that they're not walking on the driveway. But
But that should
Yeah.
be your main entrance, I think. In my opinion, it should be your main entrance to those units versus coming from the driveway. It's just more appealing. I mean, this is my personal, design that I have been thought, doing for many years, and projects like this deserve to be treated as individual homes.
Right.
Now, if you can work that, that'll be great. But I want to wait until,
Okay.
well, whatever. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Mr. Sarkisian?
I agree with Mr. Marjan, because we had similar property 2 weeks ago.
That's correct.
The two opposing buildings. And to me, it looks like there is space.
There's space, yes.
It would just make it more like a single family, definitely. As far as the white posts in the front, I would like to see those a little thicker. Just the front porches.
We probably don't have a size on those, I would imagine.
I'm just looking at the elevations they have there. Maybe a. Other than that, I don't have any other.
Okay, Mr. Malikian?
I agree with Mr. Marty, and I think the entry, I mean, I noticed that too. I was waiting for the rebuttal time, but I agree. I think it's very simple. Just flip that around. Maybe have a back entry for the people who get into the garage, but maybe not to be able to access the backyards. I think the trash, it's shame to be placed on the driveway, the main driveway coming in. It can be placed behind the guest parking or something, that it's against the freeway and, you know, it can be screened. So I think overall design is well done. I think there's some fine tuning. I think the flipping the 2 units in the back, having a common court walkway along the side so guests and people will enter from proper entry rather than you know, the back side of the project. The colors, I know staff commented on colors. I usually don't want to get into that, but I think I do agree that the colors can be worked on. So I think a little bit of a nicer contrast, you know, some sort of a dark and a lighter contrast. But I think the beige color of the siding should be turned probably darker. I think the sidings governs for a darker shade rather than a lighter shade. I like the trims that do have white trim. So other than that, I think posts and other things, I think they're fine. But if we want to make a condition or consideration of widening them, I think it's fine. Other than that, I'm okay with the project.
I agree with everybody's comments. I would just like to see the applicant study, even if you flip that rear building, moving the balcony away from the freeway, because at the second floor, it's going to be almost up to the height of the top of that at the freeway level. So I think the noise is going to be a real issue. And if you do flip it or turn the balcony, then the landscaping should be heavy screening adjacent to the property, as well as the rear landscaping. You might want to get some taller plant material to screen that big green building. Those are my comments.
I had a question, if I may. The front gables is deceiving to me. The perspective is showing a little more centered, but the elevations are not centered. Which one is it? Can we have that?
Second floor?
Yeah, I mean, right here. Looks odd. It should be maybe broken in here. This should be centered, and the same goes for this. I think this mass is too
Well, I think what you have is,
I mean, I could maybe leave the right side alone, but the left one looks a little. I'll leave that as for the applicant to decide.
Any other questions?
One other question is the window surround around the stucco. Around the stucco frame. What is that?
It's a hardy board.
Hardy board. Okay. That's all.
Can we read any conditions that we have?
Yes. What we'll do in this case, if the board agrees that the applicant had met with the new proposal, some of our previous conditions, we could strike those, or we could just leave them in and assume that those are already taken care of. That would be conditioned to revise the massing, that the windows be single or double hung design. Actually, the board didn't discuss that based on the applicant's comment, if there was a concern about having sliding windows or not.
I have no problem what he's presented, the slider.
As long as it's consistent, because you got some double hungs, you got sliders, you got casements, so as long as they're
We'll strike condition 2. Condition 3 will be dealt with because we're relocating the entries to the units to the side for the 2 rear units. The applicant has already reduced the amount of stucco at the facades by incorporating the planter, so we'll strike that condition. We'll continue with the condition about the color palette, asking that there be more contrast between the 2 colors and that the siding be the darker shade of those 2. We'll strike condition 6 because the window has been added at the front of Unit A. We'll add a new condition to add tall landscape screening at what's the rear property line abutting the industrial zone. We'll add a condition to relocate the trash enclosure so that's further from the street. We'll ask that the site plan be revised to show existing street trees and other street features before the project is sent into plan check. I didn't hear any agreement on the porch posts being enlarged. Is that okay? So we'll
just need a
strike that.
substantial, what the, maybe, is it called out, or we can ask the applicant what it is, and we'll make the...
I think just base it on the proportions if
Yeah,
you're happy with the
proportions.
drawing. We're going to add a new condition that the 2 units, the plans of the 2, or the entire units at the rear will be flipped so that their entryways will be on the side facing westish, whatever it is up there.
Yeah.
And that there'll be a dedicated walkway along the right side of the property to access those units from the street. And then I wasn't sure with the balcony. Did you want that to be a consideration?
Just while they're flipping and doing things, the balconies are right at the freeway, so
Okay.
to
So we'll avoid
explore
having...
that.
Okay, we'll explore avoiding the balcony's position at the rear unit, number C, to avoid proximity to the freeway. Or avoid
Wherever it works.
wherever it works.
Another consideration that I may add is the porches in the front are very narrow. That's correct? It's 3 foot for porches, front porches are very tight. I mean,
I think that was a site plan issue to maximize space, but we could... So there may be an opportunity through the revised floor plan or flipping the houses to...
I mean, otherwise it won't be usable. It'll just be standing space.
Standing porch. Would you like a consideration to enlarge the front
It's,
porch?
yeah, I would
I'd make that a condition.
condition it, I would say, because it really help the building.
It's less than 3 feet, I think.
It's less than 3 feet, right.
2.29 and 2.8.
I don't mean to be nitty-gritty, on these things, but, it will be an improvement to the
And would that be just at units A
Both
and D,
units.
the 2 street units?
the street units, right.
Okay. And that's everything that we have, unless Chris has anything?
I believe Ms. Palmer had a comment regarding additional landscaping to the east side for the residential if you flip the balcony.
Right, I think we covered
Well,
that.
he said the industrial
Yeah,
side.
I just had it at the rear, so we'll have additional landscaping
If
along.
the balconies flip towards the residence to have screening, but we do need screening at the rear.
Yes, we do. Well, he covered that.
Okay.
He didn't cover the other one if it did get flipped. That was the only thing that...
I'll add, include additional landscaping as appropriate at the rear balcony, depending on its ultimate location. So. That's everything.
I think so. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions as discussed and stated.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Mr. Mardian,
Yes.
Mr. Milliken,
Yes.
Mr. Sarkisian,
Yes.
Mr. Simone. Oh, he's not here. Okay. And Ms. Palmer.
Yes.
Okay, so it'll be 4-0 approved with conditions.
The next case is PDR 1322161 Graynold, 842 Graynold Avenue. Mr. Kiesel.
All right, good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, Chair Palmer and members of the Design Review Board. The next item before you is Design Review Case Number PDR 1322161, a review of a proposal to construct an addition to an existing 1,300 square foot single-story, single-family residence. The applicant is proposing to add approximately 145 square feet to the first floor and a new 1,040 square foot second floor to the residence. Along with the house addition, the detached garage will also be enlarged and match the style of the residence. And the project also includes changing the architectural style of the residence from minimal traditional to a more contemporary style. The project is located at 842 Graynold on a 6,900 square foot lot in the R1 zone. The project is behind you. The material board is being passed around, and I also received petitions this afternoon, so I'm going to pass those out. Okay. The site planning of the project does not change significantly and is similar to the majority of homes in the neighborhood. Most of the homes in the neighborhood are located at the front setback line, although commonly portions of their front elevations are set further back. The proposed first floor addition will bring this area closer to the street, although not quite in line with the existing house or the existing portion of the house. The vast majority of nearby houses have detached rear garages, as does the subject site. The proposed addition includes a den located in the northern portion of the second floor of the residence. 3 floor-to-ceiling windows will be located on the northern facade, which will look down on the driveway of the subject site, as well as the side yard and house of the property to the north. The 2 windows proposed adjacent to each other should be redesigned such that the sill height is above the eye level to allow light into the den, but prevent unnecessary visual intrusion into the neighboring property. And I am referring to these 2 windows. Approximately 1/2 of the subject site is landscaped. Staff suggests that the board consider modifying these landscape plans to include pervious paving material for the front walkway, a reduction in the amount of lawn, and a corresponding increase in the amount of low water use plants, and that appropriate plants be installed along it would be the southern property line or boundary line wall to buffer the subject residence from the adjacent property. Homes in the neighborhood are all 1-story and modest in size. The residence after the proposed addition will be the largest home in the neighborhood. The second floor addition is set back sufficiently from the front yard to reduce the massing concerns that typically arise with new second stories. While the home has a relatively compact footprint, the board may consider requiring portions of the second level on the south and north elevations to be recessed to provide additional interest to these elevations, as well as reduce the massing in these areas of the residence. The proposed shed roof peaks at the center of the residence and slopes down toward the adjacent properties, which effectively reduces the mass of the 2-story home, though it will still be considerably taller than the other homes in the neighborhood. The neighborhood contains predominantly minimal traditional styled homes. The home on the subject site is currently in that same style. And as I mentioned before, part of the project is to change its appearance to a more contemporary design. In general, the materials selected reinforce the contemporary nature of the residence. The applicant is proposing a Core 10 steel panel system as well as redwood siding. And basically, the balance between the steel and the wood is more successful at the front elevation, staff feels, than at the other 3 elevations. And the design would be improved by increasing the amount of wood siding on those other 3 elevations. Windows are proposed to be aluminum framed, and a dark gray standing seam metal roof is proposed. The proposed project has generated significant interest in the neighborhood. You received, I believe, 1 email in your packet, and then I placed 3 additional emails on your desks this afternoon, as well as the petition I just passed around. That concludes my presentation. Staff recommends that you approve the project subject to the conditions and considerations contained in the staff report.
Any questions for staff?
I have a question for staff. Does the garage slope meets the requirements today? This is basically a
I'm sorry, does the garage slope?
driveway.
Or
Yes, driveway slope. I'm sorry, driveway slope.
Driveway slope.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, never mind. I was getting
Their project.
the other project. Sorry.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a significant number of,
I had a question. That's what my garage question. Sorry. The garage size, that's what I was getting at. I had it in blue. The garage size, does it meet today's standard or non-conforming standards? Because the way I'm looking at this garage, it says, let me open, 18 exterior dimension, 27 exterior dimension. Is 18?
That is the proposed.
It
They're
does-
adding on.
Where?
They are adding on, I believe, to the rear.
I know. How about the width? Because when you're doing substantial addition like that,
Right, 18 feet width is fine.
exterior width, I'm talking clear width.
Interior width needs to be
What's
16.
16-foot garage door?
Right. And 16 for the width of the garage.
Pretty tight there. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't lose it.
Let me guide you with, you probably want to talk to the applicant first.
I have that,
You have that. Okay. Yes, those two.
right. I'm with it here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't know who wants to speak, the owner or the designer? Have Chris Austri or Trinidad Campbell? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Trinidad Campbell. Hello, everybody. And my address is 3829 Ronda Vista Place. Well, the owner of Glendale Iron, a steel and metal fabricating company in Glendale, with whom our office has worked for over 15 years, approached us requesting an addition to his house. His son, with his family, returned to live with him, so he needed extra space. The main request was to use metal, since that is his trade. These plans expanded the first-floor living room, dining room, and kitchen area, leaving the 2 bedrooms and the bathroom untouched. A second story was added in the very rear part of the house that has 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a den. We placed this at the back of the house in order to accommodate the feel of the neighborhood of 1-story houses. There exist 2 two-story houses on the adjoining street. The intent is to keep the volume and massing of the building site as small as possible to blend in with the neighborhood. I think you have the sample there of the materials,
Yes.
right?
Yes, we have that.
We saw that.
If you can lift it up a little bit. We used the cedar siding and the corten steel, and I think I wanted to show it to the neighbors also. I have a lot of neighbors here. That this is what
You have to talk into the microphone.
Oh.
Talk into the mic.
This is what the steel looks like. It's a very warm material. It's not steel as you're thinking, a black steel thing.
We
You
can't,
need to speak to us, not the neighbor.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know I would have so many neighbors around. Corten steel and cedar siding are used for the exterior walls. Using Corten steel is a response to the client's trade and to the velvet texture that comes even more alive at sunset, resembling the nature of wood. The cedar wood siding adds a familiar and traditionally natural material that brings warmth by contrasting and complementing the soft orange browns of the Corten steel. The roof is made of metal siding, standing seam, dark gray in accordance with the style of the house and in color equal to all the dark grayish single roofs in the neighborhood. The design intention has been to create an appropriate addition to the house in response to the client's requirements. Since this neighborhood was developed during the 30s and 40s, we endeavored to accommodate the existing houses while embracing the architectural and engineering innovations prevalent in today's suburban communities. So this is what I have to say. The intention was to do something, yes, a bit innovative and respond to my client's trade and profession. And
I have a quick question for the applicant. Cedar siding or redwood siding?
Cedar siding.
It is, okay, because then that needs to be corrected in the staff report.
So as you can see, it's not at all an aggressive materials or anything like that.
do you have any other questions for the applicant?
No.
Come later.
Thank you very much. Chris Sostre?
He doesn't want to speak.
Doesn't want to speak, okay. Patricia, M-A-S-I, Masihi? Oh, Patrick, I'm sorry. I really apologize. Look at Patricia.
Members of the DRB Commission and staff, my name is Patrick Massey. I'm the former president of the Planconey States Homeowners Association. I'm actually very happy today to see a commissioner that has lived in our neighborhood and was a renter at one time before he built his beautiful house. So he probably knows the neighborhood in terms of the single-family look and feel. Mr. Kiesel, I could not disagree with you more in terms of the compatibility of this with the neighborhood. The issue that the majority of the neighbors have with this project is that second story. This house is going to be built, if allowed, on a street where every home is a single-story house. Out of 520 homes in the Planconey States, there are 7 or 8 that are 2 stories, and the last one that was built was in the 1970s, sir. And these are only bedrooms that were built upstairs. We're talking about maybe 150 to 200 square feet of space. Nothing like 1,000 square feet of space on the second floor. I was hoping that some of the commissioners would have driven in the neighborhood to see what other homes look like in the neighborhood. This current design, this 2-story design, does not fit our neighborhood, period. And we are hoping that the commissioners will take a hard look at this project and send it back for redesign for a single story. I've done my calculation because the Ostre family was nice enough to invite us to their home a couple of days ago. A lot of neighbors showed up to actually see the actual design of this project. They have a wonderful architect that opened up all the plans for us. We appreciate that. And based on my calculation, they can add easily 1,000 square feet to the single-story level and still have 22 or 2,300 square feet of living space. Now, their backyard is going to shrink, obviously, but those are the compromises you make. I can easily tell you that if this 2-story is allowed to be built, at least 6 or 7 properties near this site will have a negative effect on their property values. And I say this because I'm a licensed realtor. So please reject the second-story design, send it for redesign. Majority of us don't have any issues with the materials used because that's the choice of the owner. And, you know, the American dream does dictate that you be allowed to build a house that is to your taste. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I'm not a fan of metal or cedar siding, but that's his choice. That's fine. I'll leave that to you as, highly esteemed designers and architects. But at the end of the day, we hope that you will preserve the privacy of the neighbors that are next to this property. We hope you will send it for redesign for a single-story addition. And again, he can add close to 1,000 feet of space to his house by just keeping it as a single story. There's no question about that. And one more thing that I'd like to point out, Mr. Roger Kiesel, I know at least 7 people that have been denied their project because they don't have a 3-door garage, and they were told if you were to build over 2,000 square feet, you have to have a 3-door garage. So I'm wondering why the rules have changed, or maybe they have changed in the past 2 or 3 years.
That's incorrect.
The city, at one point, denied a lot of people the opportunity to build if they didn't have a 3-door garage, if they were going over the 2,000 square feet.
The threshold for a 3-car garage is 3,500 square feet.
Since when?
As long as I've been here, so at least 12 years.
That's not the case. I know individuals that were denied projects over 2,000 square feet because they didn't have a 3-door garage. So I just want to say there are inconsistencies. And let me just take this opportunity to thank...
Their time is up.
Oh,
so
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jolene Taylor?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Jolene Taylor, and I am the current president of the Palanquoni Estates Homeowners Association. I would like to thank the applicant for hosting a meeting with neighbors to review and discuss the plans, as well as listen to our concerns about the project. After the meeting, I again reviewed the staff report and the comprehensive design guidelines, which reads, new single-family residences should consider how the building relates to the existing context, site topography, overall architectural concept, as well as scale and proportion, and should respect adjoining residences through its site planning, proportion, materials, and overall architectural design. Regarding scale and proportion, this project would increase the current home size by 85% and would be 72% larger than the average home in the neighborhood. It would be 23% larger than the largest house and would be the only 2-story home on the block, and as per Roger Kiesel, would be considerably taller than the other homes in the neighborhood. Regarding the proposed contemporary style, a couple of the neighbors stated they felt the design of the home was beautiful, but would be better suited for the Hollywood Hills or someplace like that. The proposed architectural design does not respect the adjoining residences and is not compatible with the neighborhood, which is predominantly minimal traditional and Spanish colonial revival style homes. Pursuant to staff's analysis, overall the project is internally consistent and successfully implements the contemporary style of the redesigned residence. Although it may be internally consistent, it is clear this project fails externally with regard to size, mass, and scale. I believe it is clear this project does not comply with the intent of the design guideline as it relates to existing context, proportion, and overall architectural concept. And for that reason, I respectfully request that you deny this project as currently proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
A question to the speaker. When did they meet with you?
Monday night.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Daniel Malsetti?
Good evening, folks. Well,
State your name and address.
my name is Daniel Maladi. I live in 846 Greenold, which is the next door neighbor to the Ospreys. I lived there since 1986. I have nothing but good memories about the Ospreys. My girls grew friends with them. Today I have a big problem. I don't care what's it look like or what size is it. I don't want anybody to be looking down on me in my couch, lounging in my couch. I have 5 windows on that side between him and I.
May I ask you which side you're on if you're facing the house?
I am the north neighbor to him.
This right here.
Yes, I have 5 windows on that side. And I have to say what happened in that Monday meeting. I expressed my feeling about my 5 windows and my privacy that would be completely gone. The lady told me, well, just put some curtains on it. So I suggested that, no, I'll do you better. I will just close them up to maintain my privacy. I have 2 girls in the house and a wife, and I enjoyed my privacy, and I cherish my privacy. I don't want anything to make me feel like, oh my gosh, somebody's looking at me, or not. But how do I know this? I lived in here in peace and harmony with the Austrays. Tomorrow we will be still good neighbors, but not with this. Now, the steel and the heat radiation could be another issue, but that's secondary to me. My privacy is A1 to me. Nothing in this house is compatible with the neighborhood. I talked to Chris several times, one-on-one, with friends, and he told me that he have a basement that I said, well, hello, why don't you expand the basement? I said, that's a good idea. We may have to go there. I talked to the architect. She said, no, we have to build retaining walls. What is this? You have steel. You could make the best retaining wall there is. So please, all I want is to feel like I'm safe, my family are not looked down in, and my privacy is contained. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much. Delia Kersonis?
Hi, my name is Vilia Kersonis. I live at 851 Graynell, and I purchased this property towards the beginning of the year, so I haven't been there in the neighborhood very long, but I was specifically looking for this type of street. It's a lovely tree-lined street, primarily single-story homes, and I likewise, even though I love these modern styles, and I'd love to live in a house like that, but this is not the place for this house. It will completely change the character of the street, and like it's been said many times, the square footage is basically being doubled. It's going to be like all of a sudden this massive thing sticks out on the street that is not in character with the neighborhood. The lot sizes are huge, and I concur with some of the other opinions that, you know, everybody wants what they want. They want to go up and they want to have their yard, and I feel like that affects the entire neighborhood. When they have the option, the lots are big, you know, expand outwards, like it should be a compromise, like give up some of your yard space. I can understand the need to expand your square footage, but I really think you need to take everything in consideration. And as far as the modern style and saying that, you know, goes with his occupation, I mean, that's not his place of business, and I just don't think that it would fit in at all with the neighborhood, and I do think that it would reduce the property values because it would immediately change the look of the entire tree-lined street.
Thank you very much. Barbara Wildermuth?
My name is Barbara Wildermuth, and I live at 843 Graynell. I live directly across the street from this project, so I will be looking at it every day. As was said before, I agree that this is a modest neighborhood, traditional homes, and this project in no way, any way, conforms with our neighborhood. It will, in essence, stand out like a sore thumb. And it is beautiful, and it has been beautifully executed on the drawings. And if you look at the drawings, it's perfect. But when you view it in between these single-story, smaller houses, it's just going to be ridiculous. So I please implore that you consider all that we've said and deny this project. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other speaker cards. Is there anybody that didn't get the chance to speak and needs to and just hasn't put a card in? Okay, then I'm going to close the public session.
Madam Chair, you may want to allow the architect or owner a chance to rebut.
I could do that. Would the architect like to come up, please? to restate your name and address, please.
Trinidad Campbell, 3829 Ronda Vista Place. In all honesty, when I did this, I didn't think I was going to have this major rebellion from all the neighbors. I mean, I found this out last Monday. As to the privacy issue of the gentleman next door, I mean, I can eliminate the windows, put a nice barrier of bamboos, 10, 15 feet high, and his privacy wouldn't be at all affected. The issue is the second story, and that's that's a thing between the city and the neighbors. And frankly, I don't know what to say because I'm a bit surprised by the reaction that I have had. So on the one hand, I think that we architects, when we're asked to do something by our clients, they always expect that we do appropriate things for this time. We're not going to keep doing 30s houses. And so I can understand their complaints, but I also think that some things we can listen to and others don't listen to that much.
Okay. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. So, whenever there's a project that comes in front of us, that it's being proposed in a predominant, in this particular case, the first, second-story house in the neighborhood, always a challenge for both us, neighbors, and the applicant, primarily the applicant, in order for them to be able to design something that fits within the neighborhood, and that's pretty much our job to be able to address those conditions. I personally like modern architecture here. It's on record. I think everybody knows that. But whenever there's I'm a lot more critical on modern proposed architectures than I am in more traditional, because there's a lot of ways that we can fine-tune those. Modern architecture, mostly simple, minimal architecture. A lot of the details play a huge role in making the overall mass and the context of the building itself work well. I don't have a problem with the second story, but if it's a second story that is being added, I think it needs to be done appropriately, scale-wise, proportion-wise, and be able to find a way. Am I over?
You get your time.
They, as an applicant and architect, designing the project, it's their responsibility to convince us that this second-story addition fits within the context that they're doing. There's certain things that are being proposed that I agree with some of the, I usually don't agree with neighbors, but this time I do agree that there are some windows and some elements there that doesn't really fit in a very narrow and suburban area. It's more of a view odds that are in a hillside that has, they want to take advantage of the ample amount of light and air and everything else that is coming in. At the same time, the materials that are used, Corten steel is probably, I would say, is the first project that I've seen in past, how many years I've been sitting here, that it's been proposed. And I do really like the Corten steel, and I think it's a very warm, but yet steel, the characteristics of steel, but it has that warmth look. But again, the way that it's being put together, all the materials that are coming together, all the roof angles, it just seems like no one paid attention. It felt like everything grew from inside out. They placed the program in, which is the bedrooms and all the functions inside, and then they said, okay, let's make the building look somewhat modern. I think it could have been, easily achieve what they're trying to get with a much shallower roof lines, a flatter roof lines, a lower pitch. I mean, you can literally build a second story within this area and just go a foot or two higher than the adjacent ridge lines and be able to get what you're looking for. But yet it just be very minimal, very simple design that it would have. I'm more critical of the details and the design than I am critical with the second story, where unfortunately the neighbors won't like that. But if the way that it's proposed right now, I'm not supportive of the project, but it's not a project that I would deny. It's a project that I think it has room to be improved. There's at least a deny is probably the last resort that a lot of the neighbors came about and say deny the project, which I'm not about to use that, exercise that option right now at this moment. I think a very strong look needs to happen to the design of all these angled roofs, materials that are left over by the windows that are placed with the sidings, the over the window headers and how minimal they are, and some placement of the windows, taking consideration the neighbors. You know, you placing these huge windows, floor to ceiling 10-foot windows against a one-story building. I mean, what do you want to see there? I mean, I understand that the point is that we want to have a modern look, we want to have an open window, but there's many different ways of achieving that. Even large windows, but then block that with certain elements and create a kind of a balcony or something. I'm not going to sit here and design it, but I think I'm more critical of the overall design. So, recapping of what I just said, I'm supportive of the second story only if they prove to me that it fits within the neighborhood. At this moment, the way it's designed, it doesn't fit within the neighborhood. It doesn't fit within all the one-story context that it's there. Even the neighborhood, the survey, it says all homes in the neighborhood are one story. So if you're proposing a modern and you have all predominantly one story, I wouldn't go with the pitch roof and slanted and floor-to-ceiling windows and materials that are put together. One last thing on the material coloring, the renderings look a lot more attractive. Again, the lighter siding color is not something that I would go with, but the material color are just too similar. I really don't see the point of using siding with steel when they're two of the same colors, pretty much. So it's just a matter of spending the extra money of putting either one of them, but that's just for now.
Sarkisian?
I agree with the comments as far as the roof line being so high. I mean, it's a beautiful design. I love modern as well, and I think it's a great design. But I'm curious why, as somebody mentioned, why they didn't look at maybe adding just a first-story addition, or even I would think maybe a one-bedroom downstairs and another bedroom on top of that in the back. So the second story is way back, and then a flat roof on that, more mid-century maybe. I think as far as the privacy next door, that's an easy solution for those windows to be high, but I would keep that in the back. Ideally, you know, the one story should remain a one-story street, but people's needs change and their lifestyles change, and if it's done properly, I too don't have a problem with it. So yeah, I would say maybe modify it, not add 1,000, maybe add a little less, add part of it downstairs and part of it upstairs.
Marty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some issues with this. I went to the area again. I look at Concept neighborhood. I drove around actually several times, all around the blocks. There is no one story. I mean, there is no two story. And I think this will set precedent for that neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Please, let me finish. And, you know, I don't tell people what I like, what I don't like. If it's done properly, then it's fine with me, whether it's Spanish, minimal, traditional, craftsman, whatever you want to build, I'm okay with that. But I don't think this area warrants this kind of style. Maybe in the hills. The windows and all that. I love modern architecture. The materials are fantastic, but not on this street. And I have a problem with the garage. I mean, one question I have to staff, isn't he exceeding 50% of construction on this addition? Wouldn't that trigger a two-car garage that meets today's standard?
I'm sorry, it does meet today's standard.
Wouldn't you consider this 50% over? I mean, you're touching the building more than 50%? That triggers new rules?
I don't think it exceeds 50%.
Okay. I don't know. That needs to be looked at. You know, but again,
we do look at that as we prepare these items for hearing, and you know, we look at that carefully.
that's fine. I mean, if it does, if he can make it. But again, I do think that is going to set precedent. I have no problem with design somewhere else. I think the street doesn't warrant, you know, this kind of a massing, and I will not support this project.
Madam Chair, just one clarification on that. I think there are many, many examples throughout the city, throughout the state and the country that there are modern homes within the context of similar neighborhoods. The question is that if the design is done appropriately and properly. Again, the modern style does not mean that it's, you know, completely one-story ranch bungalow homes that you cannot have. Because there are definitely examples there that are done exceptionally well, even historic buildings that are within the context, and different architects have achieved that. But I think the way that the approach has been taken in placing something without even taking any consideration of the neighborhood, I think that's a wrong approach for this project. I think they do have the opportunity to make this look right, make this fit within the context, and be able to get their square footage that they want.
No, I really agree with you on that part. I mean, maybe the pitched roofs and all, maybe more horizontal elements should be.
And I'm not trying to say to lower it a foot or two, like the previous project that we've been going past for like almost a year. But
there's few examples that have been successfully done in town, on an existing neighborhood that do feel part of the, although they're modern too.
Sure, of course.
They work, but today I don't see that.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, and with that, I mean, I like the building, but I don't think it should be in this location. And I'll end it with that.
Well, I agree with Mr. Malikian's comment that the project has grown from the inside, and then the outside has been the design made to accommodate what they did on the inside. And I think because this is a very narrow lot, the only way the designer evidently felt they could go up, and it does not work in this particular area. And the large windows are more commercial. I think this type of architecture can fit in this neighborhood. We've seen it done, and I think you're very right regarding it has to be done perfectly. Details are the key, and if this could be done in a two-story where it's just a couple feet higher, I don't have an issue with that. I don't know how it would be done, but the way it's shown, and it's much larger square footage than the other houses, it's going to stand out even more. So I cannot support the second story as that's presented.
So, again, if I'm going to make the motion, I'm not going to deny the project. I'm going to return this for redesign with a condition of either lower this to a one-story project, or if it's second story, added on appropriately designed within the context. And height is dictated by the average, and I'll give them some sort of a number, an average ridge height within the context of the neighborhood. Should give them some sort of a height limitation as far as the second story. I mean, does that help?
Well, that's if you're going to look for a second story here, I don't think that height limit doesn't seem realistic.
No, but
These are
what I'm
fairly
saying
low
is, let's say, okay, let me clarify what I'm trying to explain. So, assuming that you have an 8-foot plate height or 8-foot ceiling height in the room in the average homes, then you got a 4 and a 12 pitch roof, and so the top of the ridge of those homes about 14, 15 foot high. So a 14, 15 foot high, obviously you can't get a 2-story, but again, there's different ways that you can achieve that second story by excavating, sinking the lower. I don't know. I mean, maybe taking that and averaging it out, maybe you have a 16-foot, a 18-foot, something. I don't know.
Could I also suggest that I think one of the issues we've heard from the neighborhood is this is a 1,000-square-foot second-story addition, and others, if the size were diminished and it were perhaps pushed back.
Mr. Sarkisian had a great point. It's like maybe you can split that. You can have a portion of it on the ground and then a portion of it on the second floor, and then start looking into
And
some of the
perhaps
context.
sink that section down a couple of feet at least.
I don't know. I mean, that's one option. I'm not saying that's the only option. I'm just we're thinking out loud.
And if that's the board's direction, we can work with the applicant to bring a project back to you that is either a full one-story project, as I think some of the neighbors would hope for, or a re-envisioned two-story project with what would probably be a smaller second story, further away from the street, addressing privacy issues, and perhaps also drop down
Split level,
in height,
maybe add a split level in
something
back.
like that.
It's unfortunately, at the end of the day, by code, by zoning, you are allowed to have a second story within the neighborhood. I don't know how long everybody's going to come up in arms against people wanting to remodel and adding a second story. But every one of you guys in that neighborhood are allowed to have a second story. We cannot deny somebody coming in and saying it's a 2-story. The only way that we can look at this is see if this house fits within the neighborhood and the context of the project. So that's the only thing that we can do. We cannot say you cannot have a 2-story because, you can't have that there. So having said all of this, again, a 2-story, for me, if it's proposed again, it needs to fit within the context. It doesn't mean that they need to keep it at the same ridge height. It can above a foot or two or whatever, but it needs to fit within the neighborhood.
Okay, in addition to that, we heard some comments about the material palette, which I believe most of the board members thought was appropriate, but perhaps we could work to find a tonal difference between the two materials to highlight.
I agree.
I think the some of these gestures that they've started creating. I mean, there's some sort of some sort of a concept behind these materials that are put together. I think it's appropriate to be presented somehow that makes sense to us. You got a Corten steel coming in and then dying in here, and then you got a Corten steel coming to the edge, and then you got this. Then you got this one that you have this much of a space in between here, whereas over here it's this, and then you got a 10-foot window. And then you got this angle up. It's all over there.
Our staff comment thought the balance at the front was much better than at any of the other facades. And so
It
we
is,
could-
and you know how the angles of the roof, and obviously once they go back to that, the appropriate. I mean, every corner that you turn has a different shape to that, and it just needs some sort of a concept behind that.
And then we also heard that the size of the windows and their kind of commercial/industrial appearance wasn't appropriate to the neighborhood, and that by changing their configuration, shapes, placements, we could hopefully address privacy concerns, possibly some of the massing issues, and just the overall design could be improved through that. So we'll work with the applicant to bring back a design with those aspects.
But if I may interrupt,
Hear anything
Chair?
else?
Yes.
With all due respect, Mr. Malikian, these photographs, these buildings are no more than max 14, 15 in the neighborhood. So you
Let
could,
it be it. Let it be
So
it.
he has to really fit it in within what you're saying, fit it in within this profile.
I would
Their
be, again,
responsibility.
it's their responsibility. I'm not here to design it for them.
Okay.
If it's 14, it's average 14, 15 feet. If they do it appropriately, if they can be within the range of that numbers, I mean.
Okay, so we'll include a condition to keep keep the total highest point of the new house or the remodeled house to be at or near, within some reason that will leave some flexibility at this point, the average ridge line of the neighboring houses.
Let's say if it's 15-foot average, they shouldn't come back with a 25-foot. They should come back with something.
The design will affect how much apparent height there is, so we'll work to reduce that as much as possible.
They're already proposing 22. The height is not that. But again,
They need to work it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move to return for redesign with conditions.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. This will be I'm sorry, Mr. Malikian is motioning for the project to return for redesign with Mr. Mardian seconding it. Roll call, Mr. Malikian?
Yes.
Mr. Mardian?
Yes.
Mr. Sarkisian?
Yes.
And Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
I wish they would have.
Yeah.
This is
I
what
would like to propose
Yeah, the other guy, he didn't do it.
switch the last two.
Even the
just so
measurement,
it's
would it be
he has
difficult?
to leave in a half hour.
No.
Oh, okay.
But on this.
Are you okay switching?
But when they present this, wouldn't it be more helpful if they
whole
give
thing?
us this as well?
Yeah.
Do they need to fill out cards?
A lot of cities.
Doesn't really make that much sense. If you don't know
Making me work today.
Don't have enough room.
So Olmsted, we're going to go first.
Yeah, because the room.
Are we taking a break?
Not necessarily.
No, I'm trying to get everybody else.
Go on.
I'm going to switch these because he has to leave in a half hour.
Okay.
Just hold those ones,
No problem. Yeah, that's fine.
if that's okay.
That's fine with me. We'll move it along.
Is the planner here? Brad is here.
Brad's here.
Brad, we're going to go with Olmsted first.
Right.
Oh, for Olmsted?
No, are we going to Rosemont first?
No, we're going to Olmsted.
Oh, okay. Oh, they're complicated. I thought I know.
She doesn't want me to leave before.
No, I'm just saying there's going to be a lot of comments.
Yeah.
So wanted. That's right, you're not getting off easy.
Oh,
Thank you.
I just think
And you thought there was hardly any.
my goodness.
Very interesting.
I'm sure I'm going to hear it from fellow councilman soon. I'm sure I'm going to hear it from the councilman soon.
Less controversial, that's good.
چه آوردن میشه اسم میرن چه من بخوام قسم
Just a quick heads up, and then I'll sit down and give my presentation. These are the plans which you all have. They're on the right side of this panel. Rosemont's the other. What is it? So Olmsted is basically this side
The
here.
applicant's here?
The applicant and the neighbors are coming in now.
Okay, then I won't say anything till they get. We're going to make a switch in the, what we have here. Rosemont was next, but we're going to switch and put Olmsted, which would be 525 Olmsted Drive. We're going to do that first. We have a time limit here, so. Mr. Collins.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, the subject project is located at 525 Olmsted Drive. This is a first-time submittal for final review. The proposed project is to demolish the existing single-story house and garage located in the property and replace it with the new two-story, 2,160 square foot single-family residence with a detached two-car garage. The property is an R1 zone located in Floor Area District 1. The existing property is 7,200 square feet, with a slight upward slope from the front as you go towards the rear of the lot. Lot's about 50 feet wide by 144 deep. The proposed project complies with all the zoning code requirements in terms of floor area, lot coverage, landscaping, and parking. The proposed residence, as mentioned, will be a two-story volume. There are approximately 4 other two stories within the 300-foot linear foot of the property. 2 of the 4 two-story homes are located on the same side of the street and within 2 lots of the subject site. As depicted on the elevation drawings, the building's mass and scale at the front elevation have been appropriately addressed through various methods. Both the first and second floors feature some modulation in plane at this facade. Furthermore, the second floor is stepped back approximately 12 feet and 16 feet from the front of the house on the first floor. The appearance of a smaller volume on top of a larger base volume is a sensible approach, helps avoid the boxy appearances sometimes associated with two-story buildings. However, the side facades, particularly the east, is less successful than the front in terms of the massing, and staff is recommending that some articulation be introduced to break up the massing on that area. The roof design features a shed roof on the front portion of the first story and a hipped roof design for the second story. Fenestration pattern is appropriate in regards to the type, size, and placement of the windows. The overall height of the building will be 24 feet 6 inches, whereas the maximum allowed by code is 28 feet, provided you have at least a 3 and 12 pitched roof. The street front setback is proposed to be 30 feet, where 25 feet is required. The interior setback on the west side is proposed at 6 feet, and on the east side 10 feet, which is for the driveway. The detached garage will be 2 feet from the interior side yard and 8 feet from the interior rear yard. As viewed from the street elevation, the massing and scale of the proposed two-story building is sensible. However, the side elevations, as mentioned, specifically the east elevation, is less successful than the front in terms of the massing. Staff is recommending and has added this as a suggested condition of approval that some articulation be added to break up the massing at that area. In terms of the design features, we have a shed roof on the front portion of the first story, a hip roof designed for the second. The roof will be covered in lightweight concrete tile. The exterior will be clad with stucco and stone veneer. And staff believes that the materials provide a visual and textural interest. White aluminum clad windows will be used via the nail-in installation method. and the windows will be a mixture of fixed and casement. Precast stone sill is proposed for each window. Staff is recommending that the color of the windows be an earth tone or a bronze color to match the fascia board. Staff has received a packet of photos, a graphic, and some information from the neighbor to the east, which was included in your packet, as well as a petition provided by the applicant. I believe there's 13.
Yeah.
Several signatures in support of the application. Staff is recommending approval based off of 4 conditions. I could read through the conditions if you would like.
Please.
First one is that where staff is suggesting is to modify the east elevation to break up the wall by either shifting all or part of the second story volume. Consider a similar treatment on the west facade. Second, provide a darker color for the windows to match the fascia board. Third, provide a typical window section to indicate the units will be recessed from the wall plane. And fourth, that the pilasters at the rear patio must be slightly offset from the wall plane to provide a visual break. No vertical molding should be used. That concludes my presentation, and staff is available for any comments. And one other thing to note, that there were some additional photos provided for you from one of the neighbors tonight.
We have those.
I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a question. This is a new house. Does the driveway slope meet today's standard?
It'll be less than 20%.
Because there's about, eyeballing it, about 4 feet of elevation difference from the front to the setback line.
If it doesn't meet current slope as shown, it will definitely meet it during plan check.
Wouldn't that affect the
design of the house, the slope of the driveway, probably?
the height of the building? But I'll get into that a little bit. That's okay. My other question was, is the house next door, I don't know if you know, was that gone through DRB, the 2-story one?
Don't know off the top of my head. It's been done several years ago. I believe the applicant will be able to address that.
That's all. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
No other questions? Okay. I have the applicant and the owner would like to speak first. Tony Hambarshian. The applicant. Okay. State your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Brad. My name is Tony Hambarshian, 3921 Community Avenue. I'm the owner's representative for 525 Olmsted. I was approached by my client nearly 6 months ago to design a home to accommodate to their plans to start a family. Living on Olmsted and in Glendale their whole lives, it was very important for my clients to design a home that would fit within the context of the neighborhood and stay true to the character of the community and Glendale overall. I've worked closely with my clients, the city planners, as well as the neighborhood to design a home, to design the home that you see before you today. After the story poles were erected, we held a community meeting to address any of the concerns that the neighbors might have with the design, and there was design changes after that meeting. As Brad mentioned, the design of the home is a Mediterranean-style 2-story new construction with a garage in the rear yard. The home is a 3-bedroom, 2.75 bath, and it will be constructed of high-quality materials, including smooth surface stucco, Coronado stone, and wainscoting, as well as trim and sills, a lightweight concrete tile, and the windows will be a majority of casement windows that will be inset within the stucco. The design of the massing, there was careful consideration taken of the adjacent properties as well as the pedestrian view from the street. We set the house back an additional 5 feet past the minimum front yard setback to match the properties that were adjacent to ours and push the house back even further than the minimum requirement. The 2-story massing was also pushed back an additional 15 feet set it at 45 feet to push the second story back as much as possible. In addition, the east side of the home was set back 10 feet to allow for additional space between the residence as well as the adjacent property. And the overall height was reduced to 24 feet 6 inches after the story poles were put up, which used to be at 28 feet in the previous design to accommodate to some of the neighbors' concerns. The site planning incorporates large open spaces in the front and rear yard, as well as the detached garage in the rear yard. It will also include California native drought-tolerant planting throughout the design. We'd like to thank the board for taking the time to review our project, and we hope that it meets the design guidelines of the City of Glendale, and we're granted the approval to move forward and prepare construction documents with building and safety. Thank you.
Any questions? I have one question.
Sure.
I know most of the garages are in the back on that street.
Yes.
Was there any consideration for moving that garage up front? There's a few across the street up front, but it's such a long, you can't turn around, you can't get two cars in there.
Mm-hmm. Originally, we had considered a design that would have the garage in the front of the front of the house, but after studying the street and actually looking at several of the houses along that side of the street, we chose to stay consistent with the residential homes within the area and move to
Going to
have.
be able to get two cars in there and out?
We believe so. It meets the current code requirements.
Any other questions? Nope.
This time, I'd like to invite the owners up to speak as well.
That's Angela.
Yes. My name is Angela Frenchin, my husband Mike, and we will be the new residents at 525 Olmsted. Just really quickly, we've been working the last several months trying to come up with a design that will best fit for our new family, stay within the city codes, and complement well with the existing homes in the area. I've actually been living on Olmsted since from the day I was born, so I went to school right down the block. So I'm really looking forward to building home and raising my new family where I got to grow up. So thank you for your time, and we hope you will support.
Thank you.
Philip Keller. Oh, there he is.
Hello and good evening, Chairman, board members, and city staff. My name is Philip Keller. I'm a board member of the Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association, and I serve as its DRB representative. I'm here today to comment on the project proposed for 525 Olmsted Drive. To begin, I'd like to actually give some praise to the applicant for incorporating two design elements into their project, which is stepping back the top of the second story to decrease the massing from the street frontage, and also maintaining a detached garage, which I think is crucial in this block where every house does have a detached garage, except for one traditional home near the side of Pacific, which is a long, longitudinal, traditional style layout. So I applaud that applicant for those elements of the design. However, we do have several concerns with the rest of this proposal that I'd like to talk about that keep us from wholeheartedly supporting it at this time. To start, I'd like to preface our position by quoting something directly from page 2 of the staff report, which are the comprehensive design guidelines. A new single-family residence should consider how the building relates to the existing context, site topography, overall architectural concept, as well as scale and proportion. The house should respect the adjoining residence through its site planning, proportion, materials, and overall architectural design. We feel that this is a very clear set of guidelines for each applicant to follow when they design their project before its submission to DRB, and we feel that has not been fully followed in this case. Architectural design. The project is described as Mediterranean, but I find that hard to agree with that label. If you carefully examine, in our opinion, its boxy massing and hipped roof silhouette is really, to us, just a two-story version of the current residence. Nothing wrong with that, but I want to have the correct labels applied. If the applicant wants to build a true a Mediterranean-style home, we feel they need to better incorporate design cues of that style, such as a clay tile roof, vernacular articulation of the surfaces on the side, among other elements of a Mediterranean-style design. The flip side of concern to this architectural design would be its incompatibility with the existing architecture of the block. There are 23 homes on this block, in the 500 block of Olmsted, including two corner homes that are on Pacific Avenue and one of its detached garages that still account for the streetscape frontage of homes on that block. Of these, 12 are Spanish colonial revival, 8 are traditional. There's one that's sort of a French Norman storybook, one is colonial, one is farmhouse traditional, and one is sort of a contemporary, they call it contemporary Mediterranean, the house next door, but it's clearly not contemporary Mediterranean. We feel the applicant must demonstrate a higher quality of design than that which is submitted, one that is clearly compatible with the other period character homes quality on the block. Proportion, although there exists 4 other two-story homes on this block, the vast majority of all the homes, 83%, are one-story. The one located next to it, built sometime in the 80s, I'm not sure if it went through DRB, would serve as a massing comparative and scale that we're worried about if it gets built. I think they can build this in a one-story application on that large lot and still get everything they need. We wish that this gets returned for redesign for them to revisit that potential option. Thank you.
Thank you. Bethany and Peter Burke.
Good evening. I live at 517 Olmsted, so 2 houses down, and we've been looking at the construction that's been going on with the storyboards, and we're concerned because it looks right into our daughter's window, which we live on. We have a second-story home as well. It's one that was built in 1927, so I know that the guidelines are quite different now from when they built them then. So we have that concern. We think the design, it doesn't really go with the street, with the other homes that are already there. But we really would like to see that it stay at one story like most of the houses that are on that street. So that's pretty much our concerns. So hopefully we can stick with that and keep it a one story like most of the homes that are there. Thank you.
Thank you. Adrian Valance.
Good evening. I live at 521 Olmsted, which is the next door neighbor to 525. I oppose the design plan for 525 Olmsted Drive for the following reason. It does not fit the character of the neighborhood. This block of Olmsted, from Pacific to Hillcrest, is predominantly single-story homes. There are 5 two-story homes, but 2 of them are on corner lots. One of them is the first house built on the block. It is on a huge lot, the largest lot in the neighborhood at 16,000 square feet, and it is set back 50 feet from the street. The lot also slopes downward, so it doesn't give the look of a two-story. The house at 529 Olmsted is an anomaly, and it sticks out as not belonging on the block. It far exceeds current FAR regulations and is in fact the largest house on the block at over 3,300 square feet. It is also not an original home of the time period. It was built in the 1980s and lacks the original character found in the neighborhood. The house at 517 Olmsted has a modest, stepped-back second floor that is only 27 feet long. The other structure being represented as 2 stories is a small apartment above the garage at 1415 North Pacific Avenue. It is not a full 2-story home. The actual home at 1415 North Pacific is a single story, and it occupies a corner lot. If 525 Olmsted is allowed to proceed with this 2-story home, the house at 521 Olmsted will be the only home surrounded on both sides by 2 two-story buildings. There are no other single-story homes on Olmsted, Monte Vista, and Spencer from Pacific to Hillcrest that are surrounded on both sides by 2-story homes. Having 2 two-story homes on either side of 521 Olmsted Drive will create a tunnel effect, resulting in 521 Olmsted looking crammed between 2 larger houses, and it will make a house built in 1925 look out of place. This tunnel effect will negatively affect our quality of life by greatly reducing natural light into our bedrooms and bathrooms, as well as infringing upon our privacy. I appreciate that the owners of 525 Olmsted want to have a nice home and good quality of life, but it should not come at our expense. I also realize that neighborhoods change, but no one would expect to purchase a home and in 4 years have the neighboring house be demolished and replaced with a 2-story house. There are other single-story homes on the block that are over 2,000 square feet, so it is feasible for the owners of 525 Olmsted to have their square footage in a single-story house. When we purchased 521 Olmsted Drive, we expected the house next door at 525 to be remodeled, but we never imagined that it would be torn down and replaced with a house with 24-foot tall walls. If we had imagined such a scenario, we might not have purchased our home at 521 Olmsted Drive. Thank you.
Thank you. George Holmgren? Oh, Georgia, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Thank you for this opportunity. I've written something out, but I need to speak more extemporaneously about this. On the east side of the proposed house is a balcony that will look over into our patio and our backyard. This is a privacy issue for us. These houses are very close together. We want to be able, excuse me, to feel that we can be in our backyard without someone else looking down upon us. I also feel that if in the future we had to sell this home, it would make it more difficult to sell to a prospective buyer if that buyer walked out into our backyard and looked up and there's a balcony 2 stories high looking into our backyard. I personally feel that that would decrease the value of our home, which we have taken extraordinary care in maintaining. The pictures around are obvious. Our hope is that this balcony is taken away from the east side of that house. It allows these lovely young folks to still have balconies on the north side of their house, on the west side of their house, and on the south side of their house. To me, this is more than enough balcony space for a family, for a single family. Also regarding privacy, a portion of the mature planted materials that help block the privacies for these 2 houses exists near the driveway of the house at 525. If these mature plantings are taken down, it will directly impact the amount of privacy we have in our backyard. Our suggestion is that the mature bougainvillea have a box built around it, a designed planter that looks nice, that's appropriate, to allow the bougainvillea, which has grown up into the tree, to remain there, to act as a sort of umbrella, so that these houses are not looking directly into one another. There are other plantings also.
Time's up.
Oh, my time's up.
But can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Those plantings you're talking about to be preserved, that's in the back right portion of the house?
It's along the side, along the west side.
But all the way along?
Are we talking about these?
Yes, yes. Also in this, if I can just take a few more seconds.
Go ahead.
The other problem we have is that this wall that's going to exist on the east side of this house, which will be the east side of this house, blocks light coming into 6 of the 7 windows on the west side of our house. It's going to be dark. It's going to look like a tunnel. So I agree entirely with Brad that should a second-story house be approved, that it needs to be set back in such a way that we can still get light into our house. I am in favor, though, of a one-story house.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eli Lester?
I live at 1411 Hillcrest Avenue. Most of what I would have liked to have said has been mentioned already. I want to make it clear that I really don't hold any ill will for you guys and I wish you the best. The just basic general comment I'd like to say is my wife and I looked for a long time for a house and a place to live in that had maintained the character and the charm of pre-mid-century building. Materials were generally of very high quality. The houses are generally fit well to their lots, and that's why we picked the community. And we feel like that is going to matter in the long run in the value of all of our houses in our neighborhood, that that the issue of scale is always watched over carefully. This looks like a beautiful house. It is, in my mind, an issue of scale. Most of the houses, there are some larger houses, but there's also mostly bungalows and cottages, and so the large building that is next door that exists, I did notice when we first came into the neighborhood that it did stick out a lot, just aesthetically from the other houses. So that's my comment, is the scale issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Madam Chair, I need to leave. I apologize. So, good luck.
Christina Rizzo?
I'm just going to be reiterating basically what everybody has said previously. I live at 1411 Hillcrest Avenue, and we would just prefer in our neighborhood to not have something that's out of scale or proportion with the rest of the neighborhood and blends in with the design. There are no Mediterranean-style homes in our neighborhood. They are Spanish-style homes, mostly. So we would prefer something that matched with the rest of the style of the neighborhood, and also that didn't create some kind of massive home that's there's not really a precedent aside from that one house next door. And I think that's much.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak that hasn't presented a card? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Do we need the architect to come up?
Should give him
Make
the
some comments.
opportunity.
Go ahead.
I'd like to address some of the issues that were brought up. In terms of the massing, the current footprint of the new proposed project is actually going to be smaller in terms of the width. We are at a 34-foot facade, which already makes it pretty difficult to work with in terms of making these elements actually work with one another in terms of the entry, the living room, and whatnot. As well, the overall height of the house was actually dropped significantly after we put the story poles up. The owners moved to go with slab on grade. We reduced the first floor height by 6 inches, as well as changing the slope of the roof from 4 to 12 to 3 to 12 to help aid in reducing the height of the home and to accommodate to some of the neighbors' concerns.
Are you saying that that's what's story poles are now doesn't reflect what you
No, they are. We've changed the story poles again. And if you notice on your drawings, this is the second revision, so we've been working with the neighborhood and the city planners to really try to accommodate to the city as much as possible. In terms of the rear balcony and privacy issues, we have brought a proposed design that blocks off that rear balcony on that portion of the house, and the owners are willing to move forward with blocking off that portion. But I would like to add that after we met with the neighborhood, we did reduce that balcony exposure to the east side by half of the width. I can give you guys this design if need be.
Yeah, we can look at that.
In terms of the planting on the rear side, majority of that view is blocked by a tree that is on the neighbor's property. We will be re-landscaping the property, but if you notice the landscape plan, there is an additional tree that will be added in front of that balcony to add to the privacy as well. And then in regards to the issue of the style of the home, we really tried to respect the 300-foot radius as well as the 500-foot radius of the community. And if you do look within the 500-foot radius, there is Mediterranean-style homes within the neighborhood.
Okay.
I had a question. You mentioned ceiling height. What is the exact ceiling height that you're proposing? Because on the plan it's 9.6 on both floors, 9.6 on both floors?
9.6 and then 9 on the second floor.
Yeah, okay, 9.6 and 9, and that hasn't changed.
That originally, in the previous design that we went over with the neighborhood, we had a 10-foot ceiling height on the first floor. That has reduced.
Would you be willing to reduce that to a shorter?
I think I would have to talk to the owners in terms of what their thoughts are on this, but I do feel that we've already dropped the house 3 feet 6 inches from the original design that they were proposing to do to begin with.
Any other
I
questions?
also had a question. I know you're going to a Mediterranean direction, but have you thought of making it more authentic Mediterranean? I mean, more, not such a hybrid design, because this is more of a hybrid Mediterranean. And just a thought, have you thought of creating more authenticity to the building?
If you could mention the comment in terms of what makes it a hybrid, I could develop on that and possibly work with the staff to develop it as we move forward in construction documents.
Well, hybrid is the window choices that you have and the embellishments that you have created, the stonework, and, you need to create a consistency, but I'll elaborate on that a little further later. But I think the house warrants authenticity because of the neighborhood. I mean, you're going in the right direction. You're massing. I have some comments on the massing, but you're going in the right direction, and I know some neighbors are objecting, but also I see in the package you have a lot of neighbors also supporting it. And thank you for doing that, reaching out to the neighborhood. And that's all, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Close the session. You want to start? Dennis?
Sure. Yeah. I have no issues with the direction of the applicant is going, but I do feel that there is more room to reduce the scale and the mass on this building. The heights could be reduced a little more. Also, I concur with staff comments that the side setback should be set back on the second floor. It'll give you a little relief. Even the building that is built next to you has done that to respect the neighborhood on the other side. I was out there, but I think there is room to create more authenticity on this building, recessed windows, the sill. I don't know if my colleagues will agree, is these, little arch kind of windows, it's not really a Mediterranean, in my opinion. And, in the back, okay, it's hidden in the covered area, that's, but in the front, it should be more, consistency there.
If I can just break in, the reason this was called Mediterranean in the staff report was because that's what the applicant had called it.
Okay.
We try to stay away from, we recognize there's a lot of stylistic hybrids out there, and so we work with the applicant on the design that's kind of proposed. The board's within its power to ask for a traditional style, but you could also work with this style or this lack of any precise style. That's where style
I
gets so
could work
tricky,
with
so-
it. I mean, I could work
Yes.
with
I
it.
think what you're saying is you need a little more quality,
A little more quality in the window because it looks too flimsy to me. You know, it's just
more like a tract.
yeah, more of a this is more of a track kind of an image.
More substantial windows.
No more substantial windows. If you are going to use some arch, make them, either
Recess.
recessed and create some interest to it, because I think will help the building, in my opinion. But I do have concern with the stone. I don't think the stone should carry on the columns all the way in the back. It should stay at the base, including the fireplace. The second floor setback I already mentioned. I recommend that. Yeah, and the windows definitely need to be recessed and with sill. I also cautious the applicant that he needs to look at the driveway slope because I think, that may affect your building height. And that's all my comments. I'm okay in supporting with the conditions.
Mr. Circus here?
I agree with Mr. Mardian about the massing and the setback on the sides. I personally would have loved to see a nice Mediterranean, because when you set back the second floor, it really gives you the opportunity to do a nice tile roof and Mediterranean that would probably match the house next door a lot better. But that's personal taste. Again, I agree, more substantial windows, a little more relief, a little more dimension as far as the arches and all. I'm not crazy about those half arches myself on windows. I think if you make them rectangle or flat on top, it would probably be a little more Mediterranean than those arches. But
Can I just, when you both said more substantial, excuse me, windows, what exactly do you mean? That the opening is in the recess?
Yeah.
Or the actual window?
No, recess.
Recessed. I mean, the proportions are fine. I mean, I'm assuming these are casement
See, I
windows.
disagree with you. It's someone like, they've got, a lot of those windows, there's a function to the window related to the space that it's like a living room or a kitchen. The bathroom windows in the rear and on the west side are the same size as the bedroom windows, and perhaps those could be made smaller, not
That's
at a
fine.
full size,
Yeah,
just for function.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Is that the windows on the second story on the east side that you're referring to?
Second story on the west side and the
Master.
north side. There's two baths. Next to where that balcony is on the north side. I think that's a bath. And on the other side, next to the chimney.
Suggesting that those be taller, not as...
Not as large, it's a bathroom, it's not a bedroom. You done?
Yeah, I'm done.
I agree with everybody's comments, and I think the stonework should be brought down. You have some columns with stone and some without, and you don't know where they stop, so I think that would keep the building down, look like it has a base to it. And I think with a little more high-quality material and recess of the windows, and this flat tile roof,
Yeah, it's slate. It's kind of a slate. Yeah,
It's right there.
what kind of stucco it is?
smooth surface. Yeah.
I think just increasing the quality of the materials and the way they're applied would help it a lot.
Especially he's using Anderson windows, aluminum clad, correct? Yeah, they're aluminum clad, so those are good windows, yeah.
And I think setting back that side portion, all the other comments, I agree with.
And when we're talking about reducing the second floor at the sides, is that on both elevations, if that's
I don't know that
possible?
you can on both sides.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I
That's what
don't
I'm
think.
asking.
Work at trying to get it reduced so it's not.
But we'll reduce it on the side of the
Especially-
one-story house.
One-story
One
portion,
story, yes.
correct, correct.
Did the board, if I may, have any thoughts on the opening of the balcony toward the east side?
I was back there, and I could see it could be an imposition on the neighbors. So, he has this other proposal to not have that open. I mean, he could have it out the back, but I would close the side just from a privacy standpoint.
Maybe do a smaller
Yeah, maybe
opening in the
something
back.
up above, yeah.
Opening up high.
Is the board okay with the cast stone windowsills? Does that help with creating the substantial opening with a deeper recess?
Maybe with this style, it's warranted to have the cast stone, in my opinion.
Okay.
Since we're going to a contemporary version.
I just think a good recess would help an awful lot.
Yeah, minimum, I would say 3 inches.
Oh, at least.
At
yeah.
least 3 inches, yeah. Now, I don't know if you had concerns with the height still. I mean, do you feel that the building should be reduced further, or you're,
Well, I think you pointed out, based on the driveway, it may come down, and
Yeah, it may come down, right. But again, that's to be seen.
well, I think, and also lessening that
Second floor
second
will help
floor
you.
will
there.
make
Yeah,
it look shorter.
that's right.
I wonder if a larger overhang might help, too. I don't know how much they are.
Back? He doesn't have overhangs on the sides, on the floor of the roof.
Just when you have a bigger overhang, it
Helps it, right.
helps
Helps
a
you
little.
bring it down.
Okay, so extend the eaves
or
on
work with that.
on both the upper roof and the lower roof to match.
The lower roof, it's more of a shed roof, so,
Yeah,
maybe a foot is
That
enough on
might
there.
not be able to do that.
A foot of overhang may help, yeah.
Full foot.
And the second floor, do we need to keep it consistent, though?
Generally, but we'll work to make sure it proportionally works, because it's kind of funny to have the two different roofs.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the project as discussed and conditioned.
Before we do that, could we read these back just to
Sorry, I thought
be
we did
safe?
that. Okay.
Let me just get my notes together. We are going to modify the east elevation by stepping back the second floor volume to create a meaningful break, to reduce the massing as it appears next to the single-story neighbor to the other side. You didn't discuss the color of the windows, but we had a staff comment for the window color to match that of the fascia boards.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Darker color? Is it the darker color now?
Darker color, yeah.
We had a note to provide a typical window section indicating that the windows will be recessed. We'll now modify that note to say that it has to be a minimum of a 3-inch recess.
Yeah.
And if the wall thicknesses need to be modified, we can do that.
Do it on the
Madam Chair.
inside.
Madam Chair, the applicant has a question. Do we need to open the public hearing, or do we have
Choice.
to?
Come on back. State your name and address again, please.
My name is Tony Hambarchian, 3921 Community Avenue. My only concern with the 3-inch recess would mean that we would probably need to go to a 2x6.
Yes.
Would significantly increase the cost of the home, and then also minimize or reduce the inside square footage. The windows themselves have an inset, and we were planning on doing a 1-inch inset, so that would make it a 2-inch recess. I don't know if you guys might consider this as a possibility.
Well, I'm familiar with those windows. They do give you about an inch of recess.
The board has also had different recess depths at different facades.
True.
Past.
Maybe in the front. Or what can
At
be
least in the
seen.
front, yeah, in the front.
And then when you coming back to provide a good cross-section so that we can see.
Definitely.
There was a board comment that staff comment that the board addressed partially about the pilasters at the rear porch on the lower floor. Staff had asked to work on that detail to give some sense of support for the balcony and the floor above. The board mentioned removing the stone detailing above the wainscoting level and not running the stone up the side of the pier. We also recommended slightly insetting that pier from the corner so that there's a corner, and then the pilaster acts as a return from that.
Yeah, that's fine. That was my motion as part of your conditions too.
Okay, we're going to add a condition to, oh, I'm sorry.
Stand there.
Forgot we were still there. To enclose the portion of the wall, add a wall at the opening on the balcony overlooking the neighbor.
As Mr. Sarkisian said, maybe put an opening at the top,
Or an opening, to have a
just to
higher
get
opening.
some light in there.
We talked about the windows. We're going to extend the eaves at the second floor and accordingly adjust the eaves at the first floor so that they're proportional. And we're going to reduce the window sizes of the bathrooms at the second floor that have the large windows.
Okay. I second that.
And this was a motion for approval with conditions?
Yes.
Second.
So the roll call, Mr. Sarkisian?
Yes.
Mr. Mardian?
Yes.
Chairman Palmer?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Approve with conditions.
All right. Last one.
And our last project is PDR 1221683, 3905 Rosemont Avenue. And who's doing that? You? Okay. Mr. Collins?
It's getting thicker and thicker every week.
I'm going to do my presentation for this one as a panel with that with the board.
That's good enough.
And I'll make it brief.
There's not much to it, this one.
I can't move it down. So
That's okay.
this is a proposal for an addition onto an existing single-family house. The property is zoned R3050. So we have a single family in a moderate density zone property. The addition is located on the street side of the property, currently located with hardscapes, so we're not losing any landscaping for the addition. This case was previously heard January 10th of this year, and on that date, the board asked for it to be returned for redesign. There were 6 conditions that the board had made. I don't know if you want me to run through it, but staff believes that the applicant has complied with those conditions, and what's being proposed is a big improvement to what was there before. Staff is suggesting a couple additional conditions that the windows that are facing the street side be either single hung or double hung. The applicant was proposing sliders for 2 of the windows. And there's also a wall in the front that is, there's no record of any permit, which appears to be more than 18 inches high, which is the maximum height for any wall within the street front setbacks. Staff is suggesting that they either reduce the wall to less than 18 inches or to remove the wall completely. What else? I think that's basically it. In the previous plan, there was some proposals to change the front entry, and the bay window is sort of an odd configuration. The applicant has decided to leave the front entry as it is now, bring the bay window down to the ground, revise the roofing so it's more consistent with the style of the house and works a lot better. One of the other conditions that the board had was to relocate the trash area before it was located visible from the street, and under the new plan, the trash area is being located behind the garage.
This new plan shows the windows, sliders are single hung. The windows on the site now have
A
grids in
little
them.
bit of everything, correct. So they're going to be, my understanding is they'll be replaced.
So it'll be replaced without grids.
Correct. And the new ones will be without grids as well.
That's fine. Any other questions?
That was my comment, actually. One question I had is the windows, we're going to keep them all consistent, right?
That's the goal.
That's the entire house.
We'll let them know. But one question I have, what's the roof on the bay?
The pitch on the roof? On the
No, the roof material on the bay window. asphalt shingles as proposed, or is it going to be some sort of a metal?
We'll let the applicant address.
Okay.
Okay, I have Roger Lehman. Just state your name and address, please.
Roger Lehman, architect. As being questioned about the window of the bay window, it's going to be metal with a slight incline. It will not be visible. So I think everything was conformed with what the board was asking us to do. So it's more or less.
I have a question on the plans that I have here that shows no steps going from the, in between the garage and the house. I'm assuming those steps are staying, and it was just not shown on the plans, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So are you going to haul the trash up and down the 4 stairs every week?
My house, I'll show you how many steps I go through.
Oh, well, I'm just saying they're still going to be out in the street.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yes, somehow, because I'll come over and
Help you.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
I noticed when I was out there, the windows, existing windows are recessed. Is that the plan on the new proposals? The windows around the house are recessed right now.
I don't think they are.
I guess they are.
Yeah, generally, when we have sills, we require windows to be recessed.
Just want to make sure that,
We're on top of that issue all the time. Okay. But the question that may be open right now is if we're going to bring consistency to the windows that face the street in terms of having single-hung windows at all of those openings. The board was asking if all of the windows around the rest of the house would have that kind of single-hung, or what your plans are for the back and the other side facade.
Because of economics, the owner, the things that are exposed, which will be on the 2 streets, will just be new, and those that were not visible, they will just leave it the way it is.
But what about the north side of the house? You can see 2 or 3 windows from the street. It's in the house on the right side.
Can you?
You would say your name?
Yeah, good evening. My name is Bon Castello, the co-designer for Architect Lehman. Good evening, board and the members. And the north side is going to be composed of all of brand new slider windows.
So those are going to be slider, and now we got...
Well, no,
I'm sorry. It's the south side that's going to be all brand new. The rest on the north side, which basically some of them has grids on it. If the board calls for replacing, since I believe there's just a few of them, to maintain the harmony and consistency, then we can just make everything as consistent as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other...
Sure, that includes the east side too.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, okay.
No, not... No.
The east side is on Rosemont. You see those windows.
That's what we're talking about. There's 3 of those he's going to change.
Okay. Well, that's
That's not the east side. I'm talking about over here on the north side.
okay.
So he's going to change those.
So we're going to change the street,
This
both street
and 3
and the
others.
3. Okay.
Yeah. Now, I have a question that I brought up last time we came here. What are you doing with that 10-inch sycamore tree that's right in the middle of your new construction?
According to
Did you fill out a card, sir?
Please come.
You can do it afterwards.
I think he did.
You did?
I think he did submit one.
I only have... Oh. Is that Bong?
Yes, Bong.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
He's
don't worry
already
about
done it. You're both on the same card. I'm sorry.
Same card.
When we got the corrections from the board, ma'am, we right away coordinated with Miss Anne Mary Sheets, and fortunately she was able to determine after site inspection that it's a bay laurel tree, which is not a sycamore. I mean, physically it just looks like sycamore, But when she did her research, it was a bay laurel. So
No. I know a sycamore tree when I see it.
yeah, that's what she.
Front.
Yes, ma'am. That's what she told us. That's why we were able to give the information to our landscape architect.
Either way, it's a protected tree.
Yes, it's protected tree.
The bay laurel, the sycamore, and the oak are all considered protected or indigenous trees in the city. So whatever is done, you'll have to get a sign-off and approval before we get too far along from Anne Marie to make sure that any necessary mitigation measures will be taken care of to protect the tree as part of the construction.
Okay, so if in other words, we have to take.
It's a protected tree. There's 3 protected trees.
Oh, okay.
And the laurel is one of those protected trees. So it's the same as an oak tree or a sycamore.
Somehow
We need a report and
we got some words from this sheets about that we could just be
Either replace it
or cut it, or because it's running. It's
so
in the
we
way
would
of-
we would need a report of
Okay.
that, so you can work with.
Okay.
The other comment I have is I would request a landscape plan. I requested it last time.
There was one provided. I didn't give it to you because basically the addition was going over hardscape and they weren't losing any landscaping or replacing
The front
it.
of the house is weeds, and the parkway is weeds, and the slope in front of the wall is weeds and dirt.
But I didn't think
Okay. So you should have told me that.
Madam Chair, since they're up here, I don't know if staff has it overlooked. Although that addition was done in the past, the roof line seems awkward to me in this area. You need to reconsider this. I think it's better for your, this seemed like you're trying to make it work. I think you should really try a little more. It's better for the roof, because when I'm looking at this, it looks like things have added, and you're adding this new addition. You want to make make it consistent. Make it look like it wasn't added.
Okay.
I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. You're just trying to make this.
So if we can reduce the number of the ridges and the hip.
However you do it, but I think it's better for your drainage. It's better for your,
in the long run, yeah. Drainage.
Because you're starting to create a cohesive roof pitches in here, and here something is missing. And I like to put that under.
Okay. I've looked at this landscape plan and it shows nothing in the front, so I would ask your landscape architect to continue around the front. You'll be much happier once you do the addition, because right now it's not acceptable, and it's going to look worse, I think, once you upgrade the house.
Okay.
Just have him continue that plan and present that to the city around the
We'll
front.
ask him to revise then.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then to clarify the issue with the roof plan, we're just looking for a simplification of the area at the center of the roof?
The center of the roof, something is missing. I mean, something is not working.
Okay.
You're doing all this addition, you're cleaning it up.
Mr. Mardian, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Because those.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Because those were part of the existing, and there's no work actually being done on that portion, so it's been there for quite some time. The only portion we're doing on is on the south side, basically just that rectangle, maybe around 10 feet by 60 feet. So I would love to do your suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make it work, I think it's better for the house. If you can't.
Absolutely, in as much as we could, we would. Yeah.
Well, we'll make that a consideration.
Okay.
Now you can go. Any other comments?
No, I'm okay.
Make a motion to.
Can we read those? over one
Sure.
more time?
All windows that are visible from the street will be consistent, recessed, double-hung windows.
On all 3 sides.
On all 3 sides, anywhere that's visible from the street, yeah. Yeah, I guess on the back side, there may be some further down. Yeah, no. We're going to get a tree report from the arborist about the sycamore. We're going to ask that the landscape plan be revised to show the front of the house and make sure that there's adequate planting material in that location. You're going to add consideration to revise the roof plan to simplify the central area of the roof. And I believe they met all of the other conditions, Brad? The
Yes.
staff conditions are all met?
Yes.
Can you include that landscape to include the parkway, because theirs is the only one that's dirt?
Sure.
So that would have to be irrigated
Landscape
as
plan
well.
showing front of house and
Parkway
parkway
on.
with irrigation, side street, plus irrigation plan. Or
Well,
make sure that area is irrigated.
Irrigated.
That's everything that I
I
have.
make a motion to approve with conditions.
Second.
So the roll call, Mr. Sarkisian,
Yes.
Mr. Mardian, Chairperson Palmer.
Yes, I can't hear you.
I'm
over there.
sorry, my mic's not good. All right, so approval with conditions on a 3-0 vote. Thank you very much.
We have minutes.
We have 2 sets of minutes.
Some of
One
these minutes,
from
I-
October 10th. We probably should do that one first.
October 10th was,
Can we vote, both of
it
us?
was only two,
We have 2.
I was here, but was I?
Yeah, you're here.
Here.
On 10.
you two were here.
So I'll make a motion to approve the October 10th minutes.
Can we do that with 2 people?
With 2 people, we can, no?
Quorum.
We have,
We couldn't approve them last time with two.
It was the same situation.
We have to hold over.
all right, both of them, I
About
guess.
October 24th was.
Same thing?
I wasn't here.
Oh, yeah. So we're on
Okay.
hold again.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys.
And just remind the board, we're meeting again next week.
Yay.
We're meeting again next week.
I could, all right, I'll make a motion.
Packets.
I'm sorry? Yeah. Thank you. We're adjourned.